This is the time.
That was the 7th day of September. My baby said to me.
No, you start on the 13th.
You start on the 13th of December.
Yeah, because you sing it for 12 days and stop on Christmas Day. So 12 days of Christmas.
Okay.
Mm.
It's not September?
For Christmas?
Oh, it's okay. Oh,
The song is the 12 days of Christmas, CT.
got it.
Yeah?
Got it.
So I'll start singing for you.
From Sunday.
I'll sing it in my mind and then I'll repeat it
The
on Monday.
purpose was not to have you sing for me. The purpose was for me to understand. I've now understood and I am okay.
So you don't want me to sing?
No. You may sing, please. It is singing for me that I'm referring to.
Oh.
I don't wish to be sung for.
Oh, la, la. Okay.
You're not her true love.
Wow.
Now, you're taking this thing out of context.
You do not want to be made to buy things that you give to me.
You're reminding me of a phrase that I heard someone say on the weekend. And this is an English. It was an English phrase. Do we have who or don't we have who?
That's not English. Sorry.
We have.
So
Oh, it's a Arusi Tunayo.
that is definitely Kiswahili.
Tunayo. Right. So I'm looking at the screen and I'm seeing those Google ads. You seeing them on the side?
Yeah.
60% off on stylish new boots. Oh, so there's a boot above that. I was wondering, what I'm seeing is a hat. I was just talking about stylish new boots.
Is it going to be that day, Eric?
Just seeing a hat. Yeah, I'm wondering, surely. So
It took me a bit of time to actually figure this out. And I thank you because you've helped me figure it out. I was wondering, okay, I see things there, but I also see things there. What does that cap have to do with COVID? And why is it 60% off?
60% off COVID.
COVID, what is...
COVID boots, 60% off.
Thank you. And then the thing that was really shocking me, I'm looking at the hat, then I'm looking at daily deaths. I'm saying, okay, daily deaths.
Took the hat
There's a
off.
hat.
Then I went further
And
down.
you can see the ready title deeds.
No, then I said, okay, I'm sure something will
An
be
empty
explained.
piece of land,
Yeah,
ready title deeds, and you're talking about death.
yes.
Homo.
But that ready title deed, I think, is correct information. You're not being told whose title deed it is. And whether that land is for sale is just being implied.
Ready title deeds. Okay. Welcome to the show. Today is the day that doctors had warned us about, the 7th day of December, the end of the 21-day strike notice that they had issued 21 days ago. But they've extended this by another 14 days.
Of course they have.
Because the Senate and the National Assembly Committees of Health have reached out to them and told the doctors, please, guys, let's talk. We are trying to do something on your behalf. And so the doctors have said, we love dialogue. We are not bad people after all. So doctors have suspended their strike. Clinical officers and nurses, we don't know yet. We'll be having a conversation with all three groups this morning. And also we'll be speaking to some of those who are duty bearers in this particular matter. We'll be speaking to the chair of the Forum of County Executive Committees of Health. And we'll also be reaching out to a senator, one who sits in the Committee of Health. Haya, lakini COVID-19 bado inaendelea kusambaa nchini. As we are told that positivity rate has been dropping lately.
It has been dropping right around now 10%, where in the last few weeks we're at 16% in the country. It is dropping. Still, we heard from Professor Omunzala yesterday, and I'm just going to give details of what he said. So, as we know, he is from the Department of Medical Microbiology at the University of Nairobi, and also advises the nation in terms of COVID right now. And he says, we are at 10% currently. The possibility of the positivity rate then rising to 20% should make Kenyans not drop their guard, especially as we go into the festive season. And he says that obviously there will be no need for a lockdown because COVID is present in every county in the country. So a lockdown would mean essentially that you're stopping movement, inter-county movement. But since it's already in every county, then there's no need to lock it down. However, what you need to do is that stop local movement so that the super spreader events that people would normally have in this time, church services, weddings, rallies, whatever they be, get-togethers, etc., frolicking in restaurants and bars and things like this, then should be curtailed. And he also made the suggestion of something like a 7 p.m. curfew during the festivity period. So this is what he says: remain indoors if you can, travel only when necessary, and if in public, remember to mask up, sanitize, and wash your hands. So that's the next conversation that's being had. The committee meets today, and they will advise President Kenyatta, who will then make a statement either tomorrow or Wednesday. On so the national committee meets, and they will then advise the president, who will then talk to us about what is going to happen during this period. Having said that, 396 new cases were reported in the country, with 8 new deaths. This brings the total national tally now of COVID-19 to 88,380, and we're looking at 1,526 deaths. The issues continue, whereby medical officers, doctors, nurses are still dealing with the fact that they don't have enough to take care of the sick. And we also hear that, testing continues. This is all in the face of incoming vaccines. And we also know that first trials will begin in a couple of days. So, there are many things going on at the same time, balls up in the air. But the call is still that Kenyans be extremely careful. Because as we've seen in other countries where you go into a celebratory period, the chances of then heightened cases of infection are very high. And it's also possible here. And then we'll be going into a session where children will be asked to go back to school. So, according to the experts, there's still danger lurking, and we need to be extremely careful.
Okay.
So, if we look at the cases in the rest of the world now, total world tally of 67,385,285. Again, we are seeing high numbers coming out of the United States, and that travel advisory that they did then give about Kenya still stands, interestingly enough. The United States now has 15,159,529 cases. If we look at what they recorded yesterday, again, we're seeing some of the highest numbers with 173,861 new cases and 1,076 new deaths. France also recording high numbers. The UK recording high numbers yet again. We're seeing France at 2,292,000. Russia at 2,460,000. Italy 1.7 million, and the UK at 1.7 million as well. The numbers continue to rise. Again, they also have been giving these advisories that we're asking people to be extremely careful. Going into the Christmas period, you can't ask people not to travel, but you would hope that they would not.
And why can't you ask people not to travel?
Well, we're looking at this whole thing of civil liberties and traditions that people would normally have. And in a country like the US, for example, or the UK, you're not going to be able to clamp down on people's rights. Whereas here you say lockdown curfew, it's in place, and then you say don't travel or keep travel to a certain minimum. You're not going to tell people that they can't travel and be with their families when they've been expecting to travel the whole year. Even though the Thanksgiving, they told people not to travel. What happened? 77% of Americans
they tried that with summer.
Still traveled.
Summer, they tried it with summer, and that didn't work at all.
No.
I think the debate that seems to have come to the fore for me in these matters is a very simple one, and that is how human beings regulate their value system. And it appears that when it comes to personal satisfaction, the things that matter to you, that pleases you most, will take precedence over what perhaps keeps you safe and what keeps you healthy. So you will pursue that which you think will make you happy. health. So it isn't a third world phenomenon. It's the world over. It's a human condition.
And everybody's of the thought that, okay, well, since everybody else is not traveling, let me just travel. Everybody makes that decision.
I will take care of myself.
Yeah, everybody. So they've told people to stay at home. So there are very few of us on the road. Everybody has that mentality. So everybody ends up traveling.
You know, anytime I find myself in a public space, the thing that I find amazing is that people seem to think that so long as a face mask is somewhere on your face, somewhere.
On your body.
Chin, forehead.
You're holding it in your
hand. It's in your pocket. It's okay. So you have a face mask. It's there somewhere. I went to buy some meat on Saturday. And I actually had to tell the person, look, please, that face mask that you have on your chin, please put it on your face. It's actually important. Then when I looked up, everyone around them had a face mask, but it was on their chin or on their forehead or dangling on their ear. And so I actually asked them, but why bother with the face mask?
Just take it off.
Yes, Said, no, it's important. I said, it's important for you to have it. And I was thinking, and then everything around that place, safety measures we speak of, did not exist. But then what now fascinated me was people who came to do exactly what I was doing were not different. No, they were not different. Someone was actually shocked because when they moved close to the counter and I took a few steps backwards, they looked at me as though, why are you moving away from me? Yes, there was that look.
Am I a leper?
Yes, I took another steps back, a few more steps backwards. We may think that this message or the messages we have about safety with regards to COVID are simple. They may be simple, but they're simply being ignored.
There's also the other thing of you do all those things around a stranger, but it's someone that you know. I mean, I know this person. So you remove the mask so that you can talk to them, more clearly. You sit around next to each other. I know this person. I haven't seen them in a long time, but I know them. I mean,
so you're going to assume that they're being careful, eh?
Yeah, everybody else is a stranger, so you.
They are being careful, while you are clearly not being careful. How does that work out?
Doesn't really.
And then you both don't. You're both not taking care. How does that work out?
It doesn't really work out.
Time for us to take a break. Coming up to 6:15. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Happy Monday. Welcome to a new week. This is the week of Jamhuri. We'll be saying hello to you shortly. Yes. Imagine. It is this week. In 5 days' time. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Amadioto is here. He has switched on the... It's called what? Live stream. Switched on the button.
I was actually going to assist you. And so you switched on the switch.
That's what you were going to say? Fantastic.
It's a switch, is it
Whenever
not?
you're stuck, call on
Say
CT.
hello wherever you are. We'll be saying hello to you. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, tuende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
Next week on the Great Kenyan Bake Off,
Mama, I done made it.
it's Bread Week, and the last 5 bakers are out to prove that they have what it takes to get to the semi-final.
I love it.
It's a race to the finish as they knead, knock, and proof their way through a wild technical challenge. Catch a slice of the action as the bakers deliver on a cheesy signature, and we find out who will rise and who will bite the crust.
Ooh la la.
I'm pretty happy with that.
It's perfect.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice
Partly cloudy in
FM.
Nairobi this morning at 17 degrees. We'll go to highs of 28 today. A chance of showers later on in the day. Mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 13 this Monday. Highs of 27. And in Nyeri, it's partly cloudy at 12. Highs of 24. Eldoret, clear skies at 12. Highs of 23. We're looking at mostly clear conditions in Kisumu at 19, going to highs of 27. 28 will be the high in Kakamega today. It's mostly clear at the moment at 15. Light rain in Mombasa this morning at 25, going to highs of 30 and lows of 24. Malindi is mostly clear at 17, going to highs of 28. Looking at clear conditions in Kampala, stepping out of Kenya now, at 17 degrees, the high will be 27. It's also clear in Dar es Salaam at 23, going to highs of 32. Quite warm today, mostly cloudy in Johannesburg at 15 degrees, going to highs of 24. Lagos is partly cloudy at 26, going to highs of 31 and coming down to lows of 25. Rain in Kinshasa at the moment at 24, highs of 31 and lows of 23. Starting off this Monday, actually, well into afternoon in Beijing, it's -2. It is sunny, doesn't mean it's warm. The low will be -6 today and highs of just 1. It's also cooling down in Paris quite significantly, so partly cloudy conditions at 0, highs of 5 and coming down back to lows of 0. It's 1 degree and foggy in London. The high will be 3. Doesn't get much warmer today. Lows of 1. Clear conditions in New York. Still Sunday night at 2 degrees. We'll see highs of 5 and lows of 0.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Good morning, and how are you doing? Who is online? Do?
Gee, everybody. Okay, Kevin Bevan
Makonyango.
Thank you. It's tuned in from Kisumu.
Right. And he writes it Kisumu.
Yes.
Right.
Tuned in from Kisumu this morning. Wilbert Kip Tirop is tuned in from Eldoret. Good morning. New Clinton is saying good morning, watching live from Kasarani. We have who or we have not? We have who? We have who? Okay.
We have who?
Billa Collins is tuned in from Harrisburg in Pennsylvania. Okay. And Zakbasu George tuned in and says Ghana is watching. Charity Minor tuned in from Nakuru, and Olo Caleb says good morning. Have a switched on day from Homer Bay, and that's Reagan Hanskel Nyandinga Jr. Robin Bogo tuned in from Mombasa. Ainley Steve, Bamburi Mombasa, getting you live and clear. Benson Mugo is tuned in, as is Alex Mbogo from Kamwenja. Good morning. Susie is fully locked in, and that's Susan Kanyoko. Cyprian Mora says, good morning, my people. Welcome back, Eric. I think he means welcome back, CT.
Yeah.
And
That's the other Eric.
Oh, the other Eric.
He's got it right.
Oh, okay.
Eric CT.
Eric CT. Okay.
The other one is Eric.
Okay, this CT Eric is back. Eric CT is back. Oh my goodness. Lysandra Matthews tuning in from Nakuru, as is Edwin Washira from the CBD, and Shirage is taking off on the Eagle commuter train this morning and says good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Right. Okay. So Shirage is coming to Nairobi. Karibu Nairobi, Shirage. Utatupata hapa. Let's look at the headlines. Now, before we do that, City.
Yes.
Today
is the day
of a new proverb.
Isn't it just? You know, the Proverbs, I was looking at these Proverbs early this morning again, and you know, there's something to be said about Proverbs and how wonderful and simple they are. This one I found particularly interesting. Those who are absent are always wrong.
Those who are absent are always wrong.
I can see it.
You can see it, eh?
What do you see? The absence or the wrong?
Look.
But there it's a Congolese saying. It comes from Congo.
So say it in Lingala.
I'm not even going to try.
I was waiting
I can
for
see you
Lingala.
priming your ears to listen to me, going something or the other. I'm not going to something or the other, this one. So,
If you weren't there, you can't give an account, so go away.
Those who are absent are always wrong.
precisely.
Yes.
But I like to give these things a twist, a political twist at all times. Remember the proverbial train that is moving?
Yeah,
If you aren't on it,
you're wrong.
or should we say the proverbial
get on.
ship
If you didn't get on,
as it sailed off? But we shall look into it in greater detail, won't we?
Okay.
we will.
Okay.
So the Daily Nation says there's a split of a Christmas lockdown. So why are you bringing that issue of a lockdown again? Surely they'll hear you. The numbers are worrying, and governors fearing their regions will be hard hit by a spike in infections as people travel for the festivities are pushing for movement restrictions. Officials are, however, ruling out another lockdown. This is now what you were talking about earlier. So governors are fearing, okay, so we're going to have an influx of people coming to the counties from other parts of the country. And when they do come, when we have more and more people here, we're likely to see a spike in infections and therefore spike in the number of people seeking hospitalization in our facilities. Governors want people to be restricted from visiting. In the last meeting, it was part of the agenda, though it was not discussed because the committee members and technocrats concentrated more on vaccine preparedness, COVID-19 surveillance, and logistics. Health experts and some committee members fear the positivity rate could rise up to 20% should Kenyans drop their guard during the festivities. We're also worried with the numbers. When we are recording above 10% positivity rate, it's a bad sign. With the festivities, the numbers are likely to increase, and we are doing all we can to bring down the rate. This is according to Professor Omwanzala, whom you had quoted earlier. So this is a matter that is, let's see how they go about with this.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are probably going to come out of that National Committee meeting. Yeah. National Committee meeting will take place today. There's a lot that will come out of it, probably, and then we'll hear from the president. In terms of a lockdown, I don't see it happening. I mean, like he said, every county has recorded cases of COVID. Positivity rate now about 10%. You want it to be under 4%. It's not happening. Looking at people traveling over the Christmas period, you're looking at it doubling from what it is right now. It would seem obvious what you would want people to do. But in terms of a lockdown, I don't see that happening. I think that particular ship has sailed. They're not going to be able to lock things down now.
The question that comes to my mind is all the factors, the variables that were involved in this discussion of COVID, have they really changed? For instance, do we have more testings taking place? Do we have a situation where we have more PPEs coming to the country, and do our health workers have adequate PPEs? They are, after all, our frontline warriors. Do we have a situation where people are getting their test results on time? Do we have a situation... Now, I leave that pending and I continue. So now we have Christmas. How is Christmas going to be different from the weekends when people travel to their homes on a single... The only difference will be
numbers.
Yes, and you'll be on holiday. Meaning you don't have to rush back to work the following day. But in terms of just the numbers, in all honesty, we are going to be putting ourselves in the same that our friends in the West did when they had summer.
So definitely, like you've said before, we are going to have a spike in numbers come mid-January.
It's going to happen.
So what we should be doing, what the NARC should be doing when it meets, is think about what it will do mid-January.
And then think about what this mix that we're speaking of will do to children who are now anticipating
Going to school.
in droves. How is that going to play out?
You know, every time we talk about, you see that a time like this is coming. We can see a time like this is coming. Now would be the time. And I'm really hoping, I am willing with everything in me, that as these meetings are taking place this week, they're looking at that January 4th towards January 10th. Because we're not being told something that could maybe happen. It is going to happen. We know that it's going to happen. We're going to see a spike just because of this. We're going to see a spike because people will be crisscrossing the country. We know it's going to happen. can there be decisions made that will make sure that at that time we deal with the issues that we will most inevitably see? We're going to see them. We know. We're going to see them. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Talk about it now. What do we need to do in 3 weeks? Because it's 3 weeks away.
Yep.
We're not talking about 3 months. It's 3 weeks from now.
Do we have oxygen? Is oxygen being supplied to all the hospitals? Do we have beds? Are beds being set aside? Do we have PPEs for the healthcare workers? Are they going to be able to cope with this? What is it that we're going to do to be able to cope with what is definitely going to happen after the Christmas festivities?
And even more worrying,
schools reopen.
And when schools reopen, what are we going to do? Because really, it is going to be a calamity of enormous proportions. And we are seeing it. It's not something that requires clairvoyance. No. The arithmetic is not simple to add. It's not difficult to add up.
Meanwhile, the medics are going on strike. The other cadres, the nurses and the clinical officers are still maintaining their strike. We'll be speaking to them in about half an hour to hear exactly what's going to happen. So all these things, what they're demanding is exactly what we're talking about. Put in place measures to ensure that when this happens in January, healthcare workers will be protected. Because that is absolutely important. Haya, hiyo ni COVID. Tumemalizana nayo. Tuendelee.
Really? Okay. So, the Senate will on Wednesday hold a special sitting to determine the procedure to be followed in the trial of Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko, who was impeached last week. Speaker Kenneth Lusaka said he has received communication from the Nairobi County Assembly notifying him of the impeachment. I think we saw that communication from the Speaker before the end of the day on Friday. In terms of speed and alacrity, this one is moving very quickly. The House leadership, and I quote, has agreed that Wednesday it is, Mr. Lusaka said, adding that a notice to that effect will be placed in a special edition of the Kenya Gazette today. Nairobi ward representatives accused Mr. Sonko of grossly violating the Constitution and other laws, abuse of office and the crimes under national law. Those are the same charges the governor will answer to when he appears at the Senate. Mr. Lusaka will communicate to members of the decision of the County Assembly when the special sitting convenes. He also will communicate the procedure through which the impeachment hearing will be conducted. The decision must, however, be approved by the House. The law provides two options. Either the senators establish an 11-member team to hear the charges and report back to the House for a vote, or a trial through the plenary. Though Mr. Sonko has threatened to challenge his removal in court this morning, powerful forces in his Jubilee party and government want him out. The decision has been made. Governor Sonko has run afoul of many powerful people who have decided he must go. The governor's goose is cooked, according to a senior parliamentary official who did not want to be named.
Okay, there'll be some nice drama in the Senate on this particular one. Let's see how it goes.
Considering that this gentleman was himself a senator at some point or the other.
Yep.
But you see, the thing that actually comes to mind as I look at this, it's not even his removal and what has happened. There's a drama around it. He had some companions. They were at the coast, and there were statements made, and yet at the same time voting was taking place. Lively stuff if you're into drama. But what is significant is that for all that happened to have happened, a decision had been made somewhere, and the direction in which certain things should go had been determined. Proverbial train again. This particular train now moving in a certain direction with a certain person in mind. Right. It started moving.
So the owners of decisions had already made the decision.
You really put it well. The owners of the decision had decided, look, folks, enough of this. Let's stamp our authority and start this forward movement.
And here we are thinking that we have a stake in this country.
And here you are thinking that you actually have some power.
I gave my thoughts.
You know, we voted. Oh.
They even came and asked us, and we said this is the way it should go.
Yeah. 6:30. Let's take another break. Let's see what's happening on the road. Sharage, where are you now that you left Ruiru at 6? You're already on your way to Nairobi. Let's hear about that and also see what the other parts of it. Vincent was on the move to town along Jogoo Road. And if you can just tweet us quick, fast, Vincent, and tell us how the road looks like now. Good morning.
24/7 around the world non-stop. This is Spice FM.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Traffic.
It looks pretty good today, guys. All the way from Sambu up to the bridge after Muthaiga. Then it slows down a little bit. So then joining with Kiambu Road there, it slows down just a tad. But it doesn't look too bad, at least not at the moment. We have incoming traffic today into the city after a busy weekend. Looking then on Mombasa Road, we know where we see the clog-ups normally. Then from the SGR, moving then towards the Bomas. Sorry, I said Bomas. I meant to say Cabanas. So Cabanas there, we see a little bit of a hold-up of traffic. It's that day. A little bit of traffic right around Cabanas and then moving towards General Motors, all right? Construction adding to this quite some. We're going to see hold up of traffic then around Bagavi Way today. Because of the fact that that construction is in full gear, that's going to take some time to get out of. Langata Road looks good, guys. Where you're going to see a hold up again is on Uhuru Highway, then right after the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. So right now things are moving a bit slowly, not too bad at the moment. We're going to take a look in a short while. So if you've left, you're in good stead. If you haven't, you might want to do that now so you don't get stuck in too much traffic, all right? Talk to us though. Let us know what you see. If you get stuck somewhere, you find a good route today where nobody's on. Talk to us on Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 90.
Let's continue with a look at the headlines.
So, Thika tycoons 11 weeks in captivity. It's a mystery now. And Julius Gitau says he was held at a house in Gatundu North where he worked as a houseboy. The Thika...
Hold it.
Millionaire.
Yee. You think they know that?
Wait.
Yes.
Is it the history? Is it how he started his life as a houseboy? Or is it...
No, this time where you people thought that
when
he
wasn't in the public domain, the absence that we referred to as a mystery.
Missing, dead.
Missing, he was a houseboy.
All right, fine.
Wow. Tell
Can
us
I
the
continue?
Story. Yes.
House help, really?
He said he's okay.
We're quoting him verbatim, are we?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the Thika-based millionaire, he disappeared 11 weeks ago. He showed up yesterday saying he had been released by people who were holding him hostage. Mr. Julius Gitau, popularly known as Gitau Wamali, told police that his abductors freed him from the location, which he later found out to be Kamwangi town in Gatundu North constituency on Saturday. Gitau said he spent the night at the house of his third wife, Selina Nelly. Detectives said they picked Mr. Gitau's mobile phone signals as he was talking to his wife. They then went to the house where they had confirmed his presence and required him to report to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations office in Gatanga yesterday. Police said Mr. Gitau told them that he was abducted by gun-wielding men near Kenya Revenue Authority officers in Thika on September 21st around 10 a.m. The man, who owns 2 general merchandise shops in Thika named Jogi Enterprises, but whose fortunes dipped following his disappearance, said he was seized on his way to a gym. Accompanied by my third wife, who is a police officer in Thika, I reported to my shop in the heart of the town and delivered a parcel to my messenger around 7 a.m. He said he left for the gym but was abducted and lost consciousness after he was forced to have a soda. After being forced to have a soda. The tycoon said he found himself in a big building with a hall when he regained consciousness. Then he says which was then his home for 11 weeks. I was made to wash clothes and utensils for the tenants. Once in a while, I was ordered to clean the compound. The businessman added that he had no chance of knowing the owners of the home and cannot describe its appearance and location because I was restricted to the servants' quarters. The tycoon's family said no one ever called to demand a ransom. Lital says he does not understand why anyone would want to keep him as a domestic worker for such a long time. The Muranga police officers, however, have said that the story is not believable. They said his account of what transpired would be reviewed with all expertise and technology available, and he was handed over to two heavily built men on Saturday around 4 a.m., adding that they escorted him out of the compound and he walked for hours before entering a forest. The men told him to continue walking and never look back, and he later found himself on a dusty road where he was lucky because a boda appeared almost immediately. And then
Can I ask a question? So why was he kidnapped?
That is what we do not know. His family said nobody asked for a ransom, and one day out of the blue, two heavily built men escorted him out of this big building and told him to walk and never look back.
And
he found himself now.
And does he know where the big building was?
No, he cannot recollect.
Okay. Big building.
Big building, high walls, big compound.
Okay.
Wash dishes.
Yeah, wash dishes and wash clothes.
Forest
and clean the
nearby.
compound. And they walked him into a forest, and then from there they said, now, go. Do not look back.
All right.
And here we are today. The police said they will continue.
And
to
there was no
investigate.
mention of him perhaps turning into a pillar of salt if he looked back.
No, when he didn't turn back, so the men whom he left did not turn into a pillar of salt, no. Or we do not
Or
know.
him.
Or
him.
him either.
Him didn't look back.
No, he didn't.
You know, it's a story. It is his story. And there is a likelihood that it happened. Rather slim, though, but there is a likelihood. This is what I believe the police are good at, determining how true this story actually is.
Which they have said they will do.
Maybe there's some details of which he hasn't told. For example, like what happened when he was there. What did they tell him? Maybe he's yet to tell.
I guess there are details, yes, that, and this
He may
is
remember.
why it was big news then, and speculations were rife. But I will wait for the outcome of the police investigations on this one. Okay, yes, it's an interesting story to listen to.
It really is.
Yes, but I've heard of more dramatic stories myself.
Hey,
Yeah, so as far as stories go,
yeah,
interesting.
this is interesting.
It's interesting.
That's what it is.
It's interesting, yes.
Hey, Mungu saidia. Thousands of children sent away from care homes, and this is the Standard this morning, page 2, and it talks about how officials say the pandemic has forced the department to fast-track the process of reintegrating children back to the community. So we are talking about more than 21,000 children who've been released from charitable homes in an attempt to mitigate the risk of COVID-19, making close to half the population of minors who are being hosted in children's homes. The National Council for Children's Services said the pandemic made the office to fast-track the process of reintegrating children back to the community. Ken Owino, who's the official in charge of overseeing the charitable institutions at the NCCS, said when COVID started spreading, an audit revealed that most of them lacked the capacity to control the spread of COVID, and some were slowly sinking into debt. They relied on external donor funding, which was not sustainable due to the global economic impact of the pandemic, and some of them did not even have space for social distancing. He says over the years, NCCS has been advocating charitable homes to support children without removing them from the community, especially when institutions have to separate siblings. We question the criteria some of the homes use and wonder what made them choose one child and leave the rest. It's distressing to separate children who are already going through emotional anguish. So, many children go to children homes. 48,000 children in children homes, foster and adoption. 591 legally registered childcare institutions in the country. And all of them are holding 353,000 households supported by Inua Jamii. So what now is happening is that they're saying now because of COVID, many of these homes that rely on donor funding were no longer getting money from the donors. So they had to release the children back to the community, which means that they already know that these children come from a certain community and they know that the community then is able to handle with these children. I'm just wondering, so what does that then mean? Was there a need to take the children out of the community
In the first place.
Or is there a greater risk when you release the children back to the community if you're removing them from the community because of the risk involved? This is something that is quite funny. According to Christine Nyeri, a volunteer social worker in Nakuru, Koruben, some of the homes have returned little children to aging grandparents, and others who had been removed from abusive homes have had to be returned to the abusive homes. It's a messy situation, she says. A child who spent many years in the home is suddenly brought back from the space they were rescued from, to the space they were rescued from. This is a messy situation.
Does it not also point to something? You see, we keep talking of the underbelly of institutions, government and otherwise, that have been laid bare by COVID.
Yep.
Now, this is yet another institution whose underbelly is actually being laid bare by this COVID situation. Because in all honesty, if you look at the demands that were placed on institutions, the children's homes, just without COVID, the demands were heavy.
Yeah.
Making sure that children eat regular meals, making sure that every care that they have, education, it isn't easy. Now, if people who are supporting it, let's even assume they were locals and suddenly people don't have jobs, people can't contribute, just what we're seeing happening. The children's home are just joining the list of institutions that are important to this country, but are going to suffer as a result of COVID and as a result of the occurrences that are accompanying COVID. Yes.
I think it really exposes the NCCS as well. Remember, there was that scandal earlier that was reported on Nation, on KTN, and we even spoke to the investigative editor at KTN, and he was telling us the kind of stories that they've done about this. Children homes, a big issue, because some of them are accused of, just go grab children, say these children have rescued them from a community because blah, 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 blah. Then you use them to get funding from donors. So there are a tool for a commercial enterprise. Now, because there's no money, you're like, okay, you go back. You send them back to this other facility or their homes. Some of them will end up in the streets.
Yes.
Some of them, if they actually had run away from dangerous places, they're not going back to those places. So you're basically just exposing the children over and over and over again. Let's take another quick break now at 17 minutes to 7, and then we'll look at other headlines. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the situation. Remember, in the next hour at 7 o'clock, we will be speaking to the medics. Doctors have suspended their strike, but clinical officers are still saying that they want to go on with their strike. Nurses want to go on with their strike. We'll also be speaking the 8 o'clock hour with Senator Ledamo Olekina, who is a member of the Health Committee of the Senate, one of those two committees that have asked the doctors to put off their strike. We'll also be speaking to nurses. We'll also be speaking to the county governments. Jam-packed day today. Good morning.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, tuende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
What headline are you looking at?
Well, what I'm looking at is something a little less dramatic than what we spoke of earlier. I am looking at something that is happening in the county of Nyandarua, and I'm looking at some findings that are actually quite interesting to read. I would like to understand the research around it. Now, Nyandarua has been known to provide the country with vegetables and the other associated tubers
warus
for the longest
and
time.
milk.
Yes, but at the same time, there's been the mention of pesticides and all other additives that are used that also bring with them certain problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so now something interesting has come out of the county of Nyandarua, and they're saying, I'm going to read the headlines. Wait for it. Rabbit urine changes fortunes of farmers.
Okay.
Yes.
Rabbit urine.
Yes. Rabbit urine for the longest time, it was like a pet project that young people were encouraged to have. And usually it was for the meat. But they're now saying that when you take a liter of rabbit urine and mix it, the proportion is 1 liter of rabbit urine to 5 liters of water, and spray your plants with it, potatoes, and all these things, you suddenly find it has the same healing effect that is required from the herbicides and what have you, without the negative consequences. But I have not seen, as I read this article, any research findings that guarantees that much as it seems positive.
So it's a herbicide, not even not a fertilizer or anything.
It is everything combined. According to this article, not only does it lack, is there an absence of the poisonous aspects of the fertilizers that were spoken of, but it's like, should we call it
it's like a morbine.
Yes, a plant-friendly something side. Yes.
It's a side of something.
Yes. And what I'm looking at here is an article that is telling us that more and more people are actually getting into rearing rabbits in that part of the world, not necessarily for the meat, but so that
they harvest the urine.
They can harvest the urine, yes.
Wow. So how actually now do you get to harvest rabbit urine? You teach them potty training. This is I feel like going this way. You go.
Okay.
How do you get it?
It's funny because I'm actually trying to imagine what you're doing.
How do you get urine, especially in such large quantities that you want to make it commercially viable?
All right.
Urine poop and all. You can see. I mean, it's going to be, you go and collect it. Urine.
Okay. A rabbit produces 350 millimeters of urine daily.
Milliliters.
Milliliters, yes. There's a kilometers.
Yes, okay.
No, you didn't.
He said millimeters.
You know this man.
He said millimeters.
Millimeters. No. Milliliter.
Okay.
The small unit of liters. Milliliters. Okay. Now, so do the maths. To produce a liter, you'd require X number of rabbits. And those who are reporting it actually are doing...
It's depending on how you feed it.
Not only feed it.
Eric likes the story.
No, he does. He does.
Story.
Yes. Now, it also has to do with the way you feed the rabbits and what you feed the rabbits on. Okay? Because what you feed them on determines the quality of urine that they produce and the quantity of urine that they produce. Okay? Now, there's something that they're referring to here. It's amazing. Maize jam, they call it. Okay? They said, I'm quoting here, I'm reading the quote. It's good as it makes rabbit thirsty. This makes them drink water, and so they produce more urine.
You know what's going to happen, right?
I hope this is not another quail.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Because
it's just
this
like
guy,
the whales, people are going to start rearing rabbits.
The guy who's being quoted here is called Stephen Jeroge. He says he collects 10 to 15 liters of urine from his rabbits every day. 10 liters of urine from rabbits every day.
So you ask us, how many rabbits do you think this guy has?
Hey.
If one is producing 350.
My question still stands. How do you actually collect rabbit urine?
So,
Chief.
Potty training? I mean, how?
If you haven't noticed, I have very judiciously avoided responding to that question.
You went on to the numbers.
I am merely
at Mr. Njoroge's Leshao village home, the rabbit cages consist of a wire mesh at the bottom with corrugated iron sheets underneath. They are connected to a gutter that drains the urine into a bucket.
Are you okay now?
So, wire mesh at the bottom, they pee, it goes, corrugated iron sheet, collected to a gutter into jerrycan, 10 liters. Market.
Ching,
How
ching.
much per liter every day? He says 300 bob
Per liter.
Okay. So he makes 3 Gs every day.
So now you're okay?
No, it's not okay.
Still looking for.
Is he trying to figure out this wire mesh thing, gutter, urine, not making sense? The reason why I picked this particular story is this. There's a larger story here. The larger story is some solutions that we look for are actually within our grasp.
Yeah.
And we won't see it, not because it doesn't exist, because we're looking for other solutions that are esoteric and which are all over in whatever sphere that we're looking at.
Yes.
That's really the larger story for me here.
That's true.
Wow.
That's true. I actually wish and I hope that people, for example, from Calro could authenticate this, and then the rabbit growers are supported, because then this would be something.
That would be something.
It would most certainly be something. Okay? Wouldn't it just?
It would.
It would. So, there's a problem.
Oh.
There's always a problem.
Oh.
Digital content is messing with teenagers' morality.
Okay.
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 It is.
Yes. The media has exposed in the recent weeks, the shocking reality that sits with young people in our country today. Teenagers are engaging in sexual activities and using alcohol and drugs with reckless abandon.
Okay.
Young people have been deluded to believe that easy money, sex, alcohol, and drugs will greatly increase their social value. And while many young adults may be quick to upbraid them for choosing such a perilous path, it could be the only way they know. It is bad enough that our teenagers seem to be lost, but it is even worse when parents are flustered and overwhelmed by the deeds of their children. The communication gap in parent-child relationships has empowered the internet and all its digital content to take the role of the parent. Further, the lack of digital media gatekeepers has really exacerbated how young people are falling into the abyss of immorality. The content that young people are consuming is accentuating immorality and deluding teenagers into normalizing it. From music filled with profanity to celebrities on social media seemingly using sexual content to grow an audience that even makes money. As a digital content creator in podcasting, vlogging, and blogging, this gentleman has said that more often than not, the audience may not know what it wants until you show it. It is the bold idea once upheld by American business magnate Steve Jobs when he and his team reinvented the personal computer.
Okay.
And so he's sending out this warning that this
So
is a
what do we do?
problem. And we're going down the rabbit hole.
The Communications Authority has actually been running very many campaigns on safe use of the internet, because what they're saying is actually true. You know, children now have more and greater access to information and less controls. So if as a society we don't take care, then we're basically just exposing the children to harmful content. So it's a campaign that has been done by the Communications Authority, the Ministry of ICT, the Ezekiel Mutua team. All right. Iten town. All right. You've heard of Iten?
Yes.
Yeah, where champions come from. What county? In which county is it?
Nandi.
Nandi. Now, Iten is in one of those. So it's not in Nandi. Of course, it's not in Nandi. But let's go on. It's in Elgeyo. Elgeyo Marakwet. So
it is in Elgeyo.
Iten town has launched a 7.9 billion shillings urban economic plan because it wants to make itself a world-class metropolis. Iten will be a world-class metropolis.
What does that mean exactly?
It means it's going to be a world-class metropolis. The World Athletics recently conferred the town with the prestigious Athletics Heritage Plaque as an honor of its history of producing record-shattering athletes. Now, the other day, the British High Commissioner, Jane Marriott, launched a plan on Friday and said our government has committed 400 million shillings to revamp the town, first of all. The 5-year plan has been developed through the British government's Sustainable Urban Development Programme, and it will include establishment of a modern sports elite hub and sports park in Iten town. Other benefits will include setting up a world-class tourism and hospitality facilities, modern markets, bus terminals, solar energy projects, cottage industries for agro-processing, and modern road network, including running tracks for athletes. Big project, 8 billion shilling project is not a small thing. It's being spearheaded by the British government, but also Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed said this modernization plan is a game changer. She said the recognition of Iten as a World Heritage Site confirms the importance and its contribution to global athletics history. Now imagine Iten will be bigger than Eldoret.
Just like that.
Yep. And all the other towns around it. So Governor Alex Tolgos said the economic blueprint would largely be driven by the private sector, with the government only coming in to create an enabling environment.
When is this supposed to start, actually?
Immediately.
Really?
For the next 5 years. 400 million shillings has already been committed by the British government to start the project. There are some of those things where if they followed through, there'd be great benefit. If they followed through. Would they follow through? That's
another question.
Yes, let's just hope that they would.
Okay. So Ghana goes into election today.
Right.
Ghanaians are going to the polls to see if they will retain President Nana Addo. It's been relatively peaceful up until now. Everybody seems to be having a kumbaya moment in Ghana because what they want to do is maintain the status quo and improve where they can. So it'll be interesting to see how those polls pan out. I believe the polls open in the next 2 hours and 3 minutes, looking at about 4 a.m. currently in Ghana, and they open at 6. So we will see that happening in Ghana today.
All right. And tomorrow, Liberians go to a referendum.
Yes, they do.
Tomorrow. Because their president says the train has left the station and destination is reduce the term limits. Not term limits, but the tenure of the president and senators. Senators in Liberia serve for 9 years, one term. 9.
Just when you thought things were getting back,
9 years.
I'm still here for 6 years. Continue complaining.
George Weah, the president, says let's reduce that to 7 years. And then the president, let's reduce the term limit of, the tenure of the president to 4 years. People are saying, this is George Weah trying to seek another term to stay longer in office. Because now he'll come and argue, see, now we're in a new constitutional dispensation, just like we saw with Alassane Ouattara.
And before this proposed 4-term limit, what was the tenure?
The tenure of
the president.
The president, the one that is currently serving, I'm going to give it to you just shortly.
7?
7 is the current, yes. So we're now just reducing it. He's saying let's reduce this because it's not good.
Why I raise the question is, so how exactly is he seeking a new term when he already had a long term?
And he just started the term in 2018.
Yes, 7 years.
He was elected in 2018.
So he still has time.
So what he's going to do is that he's going to use 2018 to 2020 as warm-up, and then he starts his 2 terms.
And he will start the race.
Yeah, but that seems sound. Sound logic.
Not a far cry from what others would normally do, right?
But remember, this is something I find a bit puzzling. If I look at some of the quotes that are attributed to the president of Uganda at the time when he became president, within the first 6 years of his rule, if there was a man who was clear about the term limit of the presidency, it was President Yoweri Museveni. Clarity. And he's quoted as saying, look, he doesn't understand. What is this thing? If you can't do it in 2 terms, 10 years, what makes you think you're going to do it for another 20 years?
Same man who is still in the presidency
today. He raised that question not once, not twice. He said, no, you do that thing 2 or 3 times.
You know, when you get there, it's called the lived experience.
Thank you, Eric. You see, this is a man Eric is a man who sees the future. He knew where I was going with this one here.
Well done, Eric.
Good morning.
Eric.
It's now 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
All right, what are we looking at this morning? We see a build-up of traffic rather, on Mombasa Road already. And this is all the way from the SGR, then leading us all the way down through till Cabanas and then after on towards General Motors. But it's not too terrible at this point. We're probably going to see a bumper-to-bumper situation as we move along. Let's take a look at Thika Road, where it's slowed down right around the Pangani underpass. But then all the way from the Thika Road Mall, it's moving smoothly past the Safari Park Hotel. You should be okay. Let's come back to Mombasa Road, where we do have an accident right here at General Motors. Somebody has been knocked down and there's an ambulance on site. Everybody asked to approach with caution and please stay safe. Okay, it seems that visibility is low in some parts, right around Westlands. That's taking time for people to get out there. The Red Hill bypass can be used without any problems today. Jogger Road is also looking pretty good as you try to approach industrial area or get towards the city centre. So it's looking good. Remember, Bagavi Way is going to be a bumper-to-bumper situation at some point today because of the construction going on. So please approach with caution and plan your trips ahead of time. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see or where you might be stuck, or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Okay.
The
It's
only
2.5
way to
minutes
start your
after
day.
7 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room this morning. We want to welcome our audience on KTN Home who will be with us from now until 9 o'clock. A very good morning to you. This show broadcasts on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. City Muga, as we begin the hour. What is today's proverb?
Those who are absent are always wrong.
Those who are absent
Are always wrong.
wrong. Ulisikia wapi?
If you want to be wrong, be absent.
Okay.
Well, simple, straight to the point. But
It doesn't matter the circumstances, whether you were locked out, whether you were made to be absent, whether you were not told to come, whether you're not invited for this particular. You're just, as long as you're not here, you're wrong.
and that word wrong here, the meaning and application and suitability can be broadened as much as your imagination can accommodate. You can be wrong-footed. You can be in the wrong camp. And the list goes on.
It can be time barred.
Etc., etc., etc.
Okay. So shall we talk about the plight of healthcare workers in the country? Doctors, pharmacists, dentists, through their union, 21 days ago issued a strike notice and said, look, there are a number of things that are absolute minimums that we need to have. First of all, we need to have doctors getting their PPEs. We need to have doctors having access to medical cover and various other, because doctors and clinical officers and nurses and other cadres of healthcare workers are all our frontline fighters in the fight against COVID-19. And the doctors felt that they are exposed. 7 days later, the other unions, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers and the Nurses Union as well, they joined them and also issued a 14-day strike notice. All of them were culminating to today. 7th of December is the day that doctors, clinical officers and nurses were to commence their strike. As late as Friday, all attempts, as had been reported by the Union of Doctors, to reach a consensus or to agree on the way forward with the government had hit a snag. This is despite, the CS for Labour, Chalugui, and the PS in the Ministry of Health, Mochache, coming out to announce that, what we're going to do? We are actually releasing money to NHIF so that doctors can have access to medical care. We have instructed the KEMSA to release PPE so that doctors can have access to this. But by Friday, the doctors were still saying, come on, we still haven't had a conversation and we haven't reached an agreement. By last evening, the doctors' union then issued a statement and said, we are suspending our strike because the health committees in the National Assembly and the Senate have reached out to us and they've said there's work that they're doing. So they're going to have conversation with them on Wednesday. And so the doctors' union, through their Secretary General, Dr. Chibanzi Mwachonda, released a statement yesterday saying that they are suspending the strike notice for 14 days to allow for dialogue. And if the issues remain unresolved upon the lapse of the 14 days, the strike will commence on the 21st of December. All members are advised not to endanger their lives where there are no PPEs. We still maintain that where there are no PPEs, we are not going to endanger our lives. So what is it that happened? Now, are clinical officers still going on strike? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes,
they're on strike this morning.
According to the chair of the Clinical Officers Union, that's happening. Mm-hmm. The strike is still on.
And the nurses?
The nurses also, the strike is still on.
All right. You know, when we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, we said, look, if our healthcare workers actually do go on strike, we are the ones who are also exposed. If the government does not take the next 21 days seriously and actually address their issues, we are the ones who are also involved. And I was pushing for the agenda that we should all put the government on notice, that they ought to do something about fighting COVID-19. But we are joined now by the two unions. We'll be speaking to the nurses' leadership later. The Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, through their national chairman, Peterson Wachira, and the Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Dentists Union, and Dentists and Pharmacists Union is also on the line, Dr. Mochonda Chibanzi. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to start with you, Peterson Wachira of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. Are you on strike as of this morning?
Yes, thank you, Eric, and thank you for having me. We are on strike as from midnight yesterday night, and the strike is going to continue for as long as our demands are outstanding. They have not been solved. We are going to be on strike.
When you say you're on strike, sir, how does this play out in the public domain? What will we see that will communicate to us that you are on strike?
So there won't be any clinic officer in any public facility in this country as of this morning. And so the services that we provide are not going to be provided, including the theaters our anesthetists usually provide anesthesia for the patients who are being operated on, including other essential services that we run, including HIV and AIDS. But let me say that we are not happy that actually there are no services that are ongoing. The reason as to why we had given a lot of time, because it has been a lot of time since May this year, is because we didn't actually want to go on a strike during this time of pandemic. But what we are saying is that we are not the ones actually on strike. It's the government on strike because we have given them enough time to be able to rectify and prioritize health, the frontline workers, but they have actually failed to do that. So we are saying we are not the ones on strike. It's the government that is on strike, because we had actually two options, actually three of them. One was to go on strike. The second one was to invoke the Occupational Safety and Health Act and leave workplace, which we actually would have even done on day one of the pandemic, because the working environment was unhealthy. And the third one was to continue as usual, and that will be giving a consent that we can actually lose our members when we can actually be able to prevent it. And so we took the lesser evil, which is the strike. We ground everything. We get government to very fast put its priorities in order, and then we can be able to go back and save lives. But as we speak today, you know that we have even lost an MP because of lack of something as simple as oxygen. So we cannot continue with the situation as it is, and that is why we have said, because in May, we gave a strike notice, they came out, they convened a committee, an intergovernmental, we even thrashed out the issues. They told us they were taking them to the cabinet to be able to provide solutions. That never happened. Again, in August, we called for a second strike because the first one never materialized. The same thing happened. We were called into the Ministry of Labor. They came there with a bag full of promises. Nothing has happened since. And so that is why this time we said, that we are not going to actually preside over death. We are not going to allow our members to continue dying because of government neglect. And we said we actually gave 7 days demand notice before giving a strike notice of 14 days. And since then, there is no employer that has actually responded to either our strike notice or to our demand letter, and that is why for us, we actually don't have any other option apart from going on strike until our demands are addressed and addressed comprehensively.
So, Peterson, you're saying that nobody has approached you in the time since you issued this strike notice. Nobody has even said as late as of last evening or early this morning to say, come, let us reason together. Nobody has said anything to the union at this point?
The Ministry of Labour called us last week, but what I'm saying is that whatever they were doing is whatever they have done over the other 2 occasions when we have actually given a strike notice, trying to give us promises that we are taking your issues. The same issues we presented in May and in August. We are going to take them to authorities and your employers so that they can be able to provide solutions. We have heard that song before. Nothing has come out of it since May. And so we said that we were not going there to be given promises or to negotiate. We were going there to ask for implementation of what we had already agreed on in May and in August. But from the employer, that is the Ministry of Health, from the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, from the 47 county governments, there is no employer that has actually reached out to us with solutions so that we can be able to suspend the strike. And that is why we are saying the government is on strike.
Peterson, if you were to hypothesize, really purely hypothesize, why do you think that this constant state of affairs remains? Why is it that you issue a strike notice, you intend and you purpose it, and yet the same narrative that the government has never changes, make promises, never fulfill? Why do you think this is so?
I think the problem is a lack of goodwill. I think we can all agree that health sector has been neglected for quite a long time. If you look at the strike notices that we have issued since devolution, which are actually more than 100, you'll see that the reason as to why we go on strike are very minor human resource management issues. You can imagine a bulk of those strikes, it's about promotions, delayed salaries. You did not pay this one on time, you paid this one on time, you discriminated against this one by giving them illegal contracts, and such simple human resource management issues. And I think to underpin the neglect in the health sector, you saw the Teacher Service Commission come out very fast and negotiate for a medical cover for teachers who are not actually frontline staff. We have been crying since March. It's now that they are rushing and telling us they are trying to mobilize so that we can get a medical cover, which I do not believe actually is the case until now, because we have our colleague who died from Nandi and left a bill of 2 million, which we are actually contributing. That is the time they are coming to tell us that they want to procure a medical cover. It is the neglect that we have had in the health sector. It has become entrenched in the system such that even the procedures and processes that we have with the employers actually neglect the health sector. We do not take it as a critical sector, because if you look at the other critical sectors, there is a way they are treated. For example, if you look at the Judicial Service Commission, Parliamentary Service Commission, if you look at the Teacher Service Commission and the others, when they were drafting the Constitution, they realized that these are critical sectors, and they made sure that the human resources would have a commission or a body to be able to take care of the welfare of the human resource, so that you don't have service interruption. But what you're having in health sector is that health sector was taken by politicians and it's being used for politics of control, politics of money, and such. That is the problem that you're having with health sector. And as long as we are going to continue politicizing health sector, having health sector under political entities, I can assure you the neglect will continue and service interruptions will continue. because it will be played politics with, and that I'm sure you can never see an end to that.
Peterson, your colleague from the doctors, pharmacists, and dentists union is also on the line, and this is Dr. Jibanzi Mwachonda. Dr. Mwachonda, yesterday you issued a statement saying that you've been reached out by the Senate Committee of Health and the Senate Committee, the National Assembly Committee on Health, and that's why you declare that you're suspending your strike notice for further 14 days. Before I come to you, I want to ask that question to Peterson. Peterson, are you saying that none of these committees has reached out to Union of Clinical Officers?
Before we issued our strike notice, we had a meeting with the Senate Health Committee where we were all of us, including KMPDU, Canaan, all the associations that we have in Kenya and the other unions in the health sector. And we shared our experiences and the challenges that we are having in the health sector. For the Parliamentary Health Commission, for the Parliamentary Health Committee, they have not actually invited us. They have not heard from us. I know they have been sitting with KMPDU. So from the Senate Health Committee that we sat with, we have not seen a conclusion of the process or whether they engaged the employers, and they have also not come back to us. So I can affirmatively say that we have not also seen progress from that sector. We are hoping that they will be able to intervene in the meantime.
All right, so let's come then to Dr. Mwachonda. And the reason for you suspending your strike from today is because these two committees have reached out to you. How has that communication happened? As late as Friday, you are saying that you haven't reached any kind of meaningful negotiations with the government. So what happened between Friday and yesterday?
Thank you, Eric. I think first and foremost to say that the plight of doctors is still an issue of big concern. As we speak now, we have a very young doctor, 28-year-old doctor, who is in ICU fighting for his life, and the bill as of yesterday was 1 million. So these are issues that are still outstanding. And to answer your question, when we left Senate on Thursday and the National Assembly on Wednesday, they had put a plea and requested us to allow them more time to take charge of the process and call upon and summon the relevant government ministries and Council of Governors to come and respond to the issues and give a solution in order to avert the strike. Our response was that the decision to suspend the strike could not be made at the sittings. We have a very consultative process on how we call off or suspend an industrial action. And yesterday, we had a 6-hour meeting from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. to deliberate on all the issues and more so also take into consideration the request by the two committees of Parliament. And it was after that deliberation that we decided we will go down that route for the next 14 days. So essentially what we are saying is this: the issues remain unresolved. Parliament has seen the plight of doctors and understood where we are coming from, took upon itself, and by the way, they're supposed to be on recess. They're on recess as for Friday, but decided that they will take it upon themselves to take charge and call upon the executive to come and resolve the matters with us. That is the basis. That is the basis of that decision.
What are you hoping is going to happen? Or because I'm just assuming here, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that by the time you accepted this suggestion and said, all right, let's hold on for 14 days, that there was a flicker of hope somewhere that something would be done. What are you hoping is going to transpire over these 14 days that would then cease the strike notice?
Okay. So first and foremost is that this week on Wednesday, we will appear before the Health Committee of the National Assembly, the Council of Governors, Ministry of Health, Salary and Remuneration Commission. All the universities have been summoned to this. And two governors, Governor Waiguru and Governor Ndiritu Murithi from Laikipia, have been summoned to appear before these committees so that we resolve the matters. On Thursday, there is a meeting at the Senate also equally, where the same players and actors have been summoned to appear and resolve these matters. That is what we anticipate this week. And so the position for us is that if these matters are not resolved within the days that we have put forth or given them consideration, then that strike will commence. And let me say also that, this government campaigned on one slogan, kusema na kutenda. Wamesema wanataka siku kidogo tuone vile watatatua mambo. So and we expect that watatenda. Wasipotenda, wasipotenda then there'll be no reason to, sisi pia tutatenda kivetu.
Peterson said a few minutes ago, Doctor, that he said that they heard from the Ministry of Labour and also from the Senate Committee on Health. They heard, and the same words that were spoken in October, the same words that were spoken in May, is what made them realize that, look, this is just the same things that we've heard before. We are not going it's not going to make any difference. And that's why the strike has been upheld. Are you hearing the same words, or are you thinking that this time, it could be different?
I like your question. I'll say that, you see, for me, where I sit now, as of yesterday, I have 2 invite letters that have invited both us, the union, and the other actors from the executive side of the government. Remember, Parliament is the legislature. So with that, and having had that discussion and listened to them and their plea, I will give them the benefit of doubt. So the benefit of doubt has been given to government at this point. That is where KMPDU is.
But when you listen and hear that your other colleagues who work in the same facilities that you work in, nurses are not part of this conversation, clinical officers are not part of this conversation, don't you feel that, you owe it to them to at least demand that they also be included? So you have governors who are coming into this meeting of yours, you have other actors coming into the same meeting, but you know very well, just having the doctors there and not having the clinical officers in such meetings and not having the nurses in such a meeting would not be of great benefit.
To say that the issues mostly, and I agree with my brother Peterson, we talk and we worked together and we keep working together. These issues cut across board. And even when we went to the 2 committees, we did not go only as doctors. We said that these issues are affecting all healthcare workers because we work in the same devolved system of governance, where arrogance is the order of the day by our governors, sorry to say, and I have to say it. And equally, we are seeing some level of arrogance at the Ministry of Health. That is the reality also, where unions are deemed to be hawawatu.
Daktari, I really have to interrupt you and ask this simple question, because to me what you've mentioned is of grave concern. This arrogance you speak of, how is it manifested? And then, because for you to mention it is something that you've encountered on several occasions to determine that this must be this. How is it manifested?
So how it's manifested is that, remember, in each ministry you have officials that are supposed to take charge of the ministry.
Yes.
And one thing I'll say that perhaps we most don't know is that unions are constitutional. Unions operate in the space called labor, and we have employment and labor relations. But when you have officials and governors who have no understanding of employment and labor relations, then you see the arrogance, where letters, memoranda, requests for meetings are treated as hawa watu wa kelele. And I'm saying this because this has been said to us. And Peterson will agree with me that it was said in September in a meeting where a very senior government official walked into the meeting and said, kama ni hawa watu, I will not be part of this meeting, and walked away.
This is
how it is manifested.
Let's take a break at this point. We're speaking with the KMPDU Secretary General, Dr. Chibanzi Mwakchonda, and the National Chairman of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, Peterson Wachira. Clinical officers are on strike as of midnight last night, and this is according to their national chairman. The doctors, pharmacists, dentists have suspended their strike notice for further 14 days to allow for conversation because they've been invited to a meeting by the Senate Committee on Health and with the National Committee on Health. So we're having that conversation this morning on the plight of healthcare workers and what is happening this morning. Keep it right here. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM on KTN Home.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, Spice FMKE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Okay, partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 19. It's going to be cloudy and then come down to that low. We'll see what it looks like throughout the day. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nakuru, going to highs of 27 and lows of 14. We're also looking at partly sunny conditions in Nyeri at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's sunny in Eldoret this morning at 15, going to highs of 23 and coming down to lows of 13. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu at 21. The highs will be 27 and lows of 20. It's also sunny in Kakamega at 19 with lows of 16. The highs will go to 28. 30 will be the high in Mombasa, where it's raining this morning at 27, coming down to lows of 24. It's sunny in Malindi at 20 at the moment, highs of 28 and lows of 17. Sunny in Kampala at 20 degrees, going to highs of 27 and lows of 18, moving out of Kenya. It's also partly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 25. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 32. Cloudy conditions in Johannesburg at 15 degrees, going to highs of 24. And in Lagos, light rain at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, it's 24 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, go to highs of 31 and lows of 23.
Chilled Spice.
The bypasses of Eastern and Southern actually doing very, very well this morning. Not much traffic there. It's a longer route, but it'll get you into and out of the CBD without too much of an issue today. Where it is holding up is Baghdadi Way today. It's slow as you approach the construction area. Coming off of Langata Road, however, you might want to use the option then going towards Nyayo Stadium. Aerodrome Road is moving very well as you then get to that neck of the woods. All right, then out towards Uhuru Highway, slows down just a tad. Let's look from the other direction. Coming from Westlands, heading into the city, it is slow. But the Red Hill bypass you can use, and also visibility is low in some areas this morning, so you want to watch out for that. Thika Road, then getting towards the Pangani underpass, is all right, not too bad. It's slow down as you get to the tunnel. But then right around Kiambu Road, that is a mishmash this morning. Let's take a look at what happens in about half an hour and see how that may have opened up. Talk to us if you get stuck somewhere, you see something we should know about. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Situation Room on Spice FM on KTN Home and online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Our friend Shiraga Mwai says he's arrived aboard the, what do you call it, the Eagle.
Eagle commuter train from Royal to Nairobi.
It was 7 to 8 minutes late today because it had stalled at some point and blocked the Mwiki Kasarani Road.
Oh, yeah.
So it stalled at that very unfortunate junction.
At that point.
This particular train is not moving, or
and
was
then,
not.
And then fortunately now, ikakubali, kashtuliwa kidogo.
And it isn't one of these vehicles that you can sort of like ask the passengers to disembark, push it so that it can move on.
Where are they going to go?
To Stue. Shukeni to Stue kidogo. Maybe that's what they did. We don't know. Shiroge Moy will tell us. We're having a conversation around the plight of healthcare workers in the country. Remember, all healthcare, well, the nurses, the clinical officers and doctors had issued a strike notice that was all ending today, 7th of December, to go on strike because of looking at how their working conditions, demanding access to PPEs, demanding that they have at least medical care and all. The clinical officers, according to their national chairman, Peter Zonashira, have started their strike. The doctors, pharmacists and dentists have suspended and postponed their strike by a further 14 days to allow for dialogue because they've been invited to a meeting with senators and members of the National Assembly. Dr. Mwachonda Chibanzi, Secretary General of KMPDU, is with us on the line, and Peterson Washira, who is the national chairman of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, is also with us on the line. As we were going into the break, Dr. Mwachonda, you were telling us that you've been invited to this meeting by the senators and the National Assembly, and that's why you'll be attending this meeting with other stakeholders in the sector. But you still say that the plight of healthcare workers has not been addressed. As you speak today, you're telling us of a young doctor, 29 years old, who is in ICU, and the medical bill has already hit 1 million shillings. As we saw a press conference that was addressed by the Cabinet Secretary for Labour and the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Health, they said that they are releasing money to the NHIF to cater for exactly what you're asking about. And this is the insurance for healthcare workers. Are you saying that this hasn't happened, Dr. Mwachonda?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let me clarify that it is very clear on this compensation package that was unveiled, the 6.3 billion worth, of a package. Basically, and I was involved in the initial stages of this package. This package has covered the civil servants. It has excluded the following categories of doctors in the country. One, doctors working in the county governments that were employed after the devolution of the payroll in 2014. It has excluded doctors in parastatals. It has excluded doctors in universities and teaching hospitals. And it has excluded doctors, the saddest thing being, one of these doctors that I'm telling you is an ICU, doctors who are employed, given a 6-month contract to work in isolation and treatment centers in the country. So this is a substantial number of our members that have been excluded by this cover. And that is why, to us, the government needs to do more. And that is why we insisted that even as you've rolled out this, we are at a position where you have excluded most of the doctors. It is time that the government covers all its doctors in this republic, not just a section of the doctors, and discriminate on the doctors.
Are we looking at an issue of lack of goodwill, or are we looking at an issue of lack of resources and they really don't know how to deal with this? On the top of it, from where you're sitting, what do you think the problem is? And I think this is a question for both of you. We can start with you, Dr.
We're in a COVID-19 pandemic. We have seen the same government grapple with COVID-19 millionaires, people who schemed to steal so that they benefit themselves and expose the frontline healthcare workers. That is the reality of the government that we're also dealing with. So what essentially we are looking at is, if there's ever been a time to mobilize, and let's say that the government has tried, because I think we rolled out the economic stimulus package. We saw that being rolled out. But at the point where we have hit a peak of the pandemic, do we still say that we have done all that we can with the resources that we had, so we have no more resources? But at the same time also show people that there are resources to do other things in the country. Because this is COVID-19, it's a public health crisis, and the people who bear the brunt of this is us as healthcare workers. That is the point in which we're saying, reallocate resources to, one, cater for your frontline healthcare workers, and two, also the public, and that way it means that you have balance. And we're not saying stop all other projects, just reallocate resources to make sure that you address this pandemic effectively.
Peterson Washira, the national chairman of the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. So the clinical officers are on strike this morning. You've heard from your colleague, the doctors are saying that they're giving the government the benefit of the doubt because they've been invited to this meeting. Is it possible for you to enjoin yourselves in these meetings, or is it possible for you to reach out to the KMPDU and present your case and say, this is what we'd like you guys to discuss in the meeting, so that then you see some possibility of a joint approach in the matter of addressing the plight of healthcare workers? Because why I'm asking this is I see here an element of divide and rule. If you don't go into this together, if only clinical officers have gone on strike and then the nurses and the doctors have suspended their strike, we are talking about, you know, issues being addressed from different fronts as opposed to them being addressed uniformly. Is it possible for you to enjoin yourselves in this conversation with the doctors and the legislators?
Yeah, Eric, there is no way for us to be able to do that. If you are to appear in those meetings, it's by invite. They already know that we are on strike. We have actually done petitions to the National Assembly and to the Senate. And so if they want to intervene, then they are going to call us. But for now, we cannot actually be able to force ourselves into these meetings. And allow me to also respond to the question that had been asked maybe before this. It's not a question of resources. It has never been a question of resources. It's a question of goodwill and priority. If you look at the way we are doing things, like when we got into the second wave and people are dying, it had actually been assumed by the government until we came out as Kenya Union of Clinical Officers and said, look, we are going to kill all of us. Stop these political meetings and such. And that is why now, on realizing that it's already out in the public, then you saw them try to contain themselves. Then you can see that while you are told there are no resources for the health sector, for other government projects like the Building Bridges initiative, there is no shortage of resources and everything has to go on as planned. So I want to agree with my brother Mwachonda and say that it's a matter of priority. The government can be able to prioritize. And the things we're asking, most of them are not actually things that will require money. You already have the PPEs stocked somewhere in Kemsa. What is the problem with releasing them and sending them to every health center from a dispensary to level 6 in this country? We are asking for simple things as give a policy directive. It only takes a printer to do a policy directive and a meeting so that you can exclude the vulnerable, because 99% of the health workers that we have actually lost to COVID-19 belong to the vulnerable group, and that is those with the pre-existing diseases, those who are aged, and the pregnant. And if you look at the advisories by the World Health Organization, by the CDC, they already tell you that these are people who are actually at risk and they should be exempted. Ethiopia, Egypt, Rwanda, Australia, Brazil, many other countries actually realized this and did that from the outset, and that is why you have not seen most of the medics dying. And the people who are dying are actually teachers. If you look at issues like those on contract, some illegality is being done. By the way, let me just give you an example. And I'll give you an example of Nakuru County, because I saw the governor put out his case yesterday, and he said that they decided to employ on contract and pay a bigger pay so that they can employ more. That is referred to as discrimination in employment as per Section 5 of the Employment Act. It is actually illegal as per the Article 27 of the Constitution of Kenya. And a governor can even actually come out and put it in public that I decided to engage in discrimination in employment so that I could get numbers. And that is the baseline of the problems that we actually do have in the health sector, that we are having people who, as also Mwachonda said, do not employ, do not actually have the knowledge in employment and labor relations. And sometimes the things that they do, they actually make us very demotivated. That clinical officer on contract is working in an isolation facility. We have had some of whom have actually been admitted in the same isolation after contracting. Number one, you are not given the right PPE. Number two, you don't have a medical cover so that it can cover you once you are admitted. Number 3, your risk allowance, you don't have any because you are on contract. And even those who do have a 3,000, which is not commensurate. And you're expected to use that risk allowance to be able to pay for your bills because they are not paying.
If I can ask
So if
you,
you look
Peterson, I mean, just from what you're saying, I mean, you're talking about, look, better pay, looking at risk allowances, looking at, protective gear, insurance and things like that, which is obviously what is needed. Now, walk us through what would it be like if you went into a public facility and there were no clinical officers around to carry out their duties? What would be lacking? For patient X who walks into hospital, clinical officer is not there to do his or her duty. What would be missing?
So in Kenya, clinical officers man about 90% of the outpatient services. If you go into any public health facility, in the outpatient, you have a 99% chance that whoever you are going to meet there is a clinical officer. So you see the bulk of the day patients who come into the hospital, they are treated and go home. So those services will not be there. Most of the comprehensive clinics, chest clinics where we see HIV, TB and such, are also manned by clinical officers. Those are not services that we are going to be having. About 90% of the anesthetic services in theaters, those people who provide anesthesia so that you can be operated on, are actually clinical officers. Those are services that you are not going to get, plus other specialists like ophthalmology and cataract surgeons, who also about 90% are clinical officers. Those are services that we are not actually going to be to receive as from today as we go on.
Those are very many healthcare workers across the country, and that then also affects the work that's being done by the doctors who are not on strike. To the best of your knowledge, do you know whether the nurses are on strike?
Yeah, the nurses are on strike. We are in communication with the secretary and the chair, and the nurses are on strike. We are actually meeting at Uhuru Park after this, where we will be launching our lobbying. Because we will be calling on government to stop being on strike so that we can actually provide services to Kenyans. We also don't want a strike. We don't want a prolonged period where services are interrupted because we understand the sensitivity of the moment. But then we have to make a choice between the status quo and allow our people to continue dying, or taking this bold move and ensure that the government puts its priorities in order and we can come back and now effectively be able to deliver services when we are well protected and well catered for and when we are confident. And let me just say this. I led a team of Kenyans to West Africa in 2015. I was the team leader Sierra Leone in the fight against Ebola. We came back with a report that had recommendations on how the country can be able to put in place mechanisms to avoid falling into the same trap that Sierra Leone and Liberia fell into during the Ebola time. One of them was that we told them that this group that has come back, a group of heroes and heroines, very bold, who can actually face Ebola, employ them and put them under a disaster management as the human resource, so they'll be working in other areas, so that anytime you have this, you can be able to bring them together and capacity build them so that they'll be able to conduct trainings once you have such a disease in Kenya very fast. Because there are three things that will give you confidence when you are facing such a disease and such an outbreak that is very infectious and deadly. Number one is the knowledge. Have you been trained? Number two is the protective gear. Do I have the protective gear? And if I have the protective gear, have I been trained to a level that I feel I can use them well and effectively? And number three, am I covered? If I fall in, what will happen? If I die, is my family going to live the rest of their life in this destitution? Are they going to be compensated? All these things had been provided for as we went for Ebola. We had been trained. We were trained in Kenya for 1 week. And outside there, we were trained for 2 weeks, very rigorous and intensive. Number two, we had an oversupply of PPEs. We actually never thought at the time that we would actually lack them. Number three, we had a medical cover that would actually airlift me to the best and the top hospital in the world. if I was to die, my family would actually be very rich. They would have been given a lot of millions if I actually did die. And so that is what actually gave us confidence, and we said that somebody somewhere took the responsibility of ensuring that we were catered for. We gave the same information to this government. And if you have been following our prayers, especially as Kenya Union of Clinical Officers and our advisories, these are the same things we started from the first time, even before we got the first case. This is what we were telling the government. Ensure you have trained well. Ensure that the PPEs are in place. Ensure you prepare a medical cover and a compensation package in case anybody dies. So that is why I'm saying it's a matter of negligence. It's a matter of lack of priority. It's not a matter of resources.
Dr. Machonda, as you have these conversations this morning, what is the absolute bare minimum that you're ready to take, even as we continue this? What is the absolute bare minimum? Because you know what, as we see it, it would seem, if just speculating, that it could be that the committees who meet you feel, or they assume that they could have a conversation with you, and then you could convince the rest to kind of wait. But are you at a bare minimum state right now where you say, look, it's either this or we retain the strike? Or is it something that you're willing to accept a little bit here and then wait for the future?
That question is very good. And let me say that I've come out really strong and said that we will not engage in suicide mission. And I meant that. And I really mean it. You see, the issues we've put forth might look very simple, but they're very complicated given the circumstances. And given the circumstances that in the same government, it's easy to look at PPEs stuck in Kemsa, but how are they stuck there? People put in money and they're looking to make profit. So, one, PPEs must be available to the doctors and other healthcare workers, the clinical officers, nurses. Two, the allowances that are applicable that we negotiated and signed in 2017, the return to work formula and CBA are non-negotiable. Three, the whole issue of compensation, everyone must be compensated. Four, the issue of the NHIF insurance, medical cover, that one must be addressed. We have a serious shortage. Let the government work on a framework to employ more doctors in public service. Because as we speak, those who are on the ground are strained, are drained, and it's only a matter of time before they equally just go to work like zombies and not really give their all. Five, there is the whole issue of the Health Services Commission, because what you're seeing, and COVID has exposed systems across the entire world. But in our country, you have disjointed efforts between the national and county government, and this is now has reflected for so long in the human resource for health management, and that is why there is need for the creation of a Health Services Commission that can resolve the issues. We can talk about a devolved system of governance that it is already put in place in the Constitution, but is it working for the country as we speak? So it's a matter, and it's that point where now everyone has to now put aside their egos and say, okay, fine, there's a problem here and we must address this problem. So essentially what I'm saying is most of the issues, the issue of a dedicated healthcare facility in each county, matters that we raised as early back as March, April, and July even reminded them in the extraordinary summit. This is not rocket science. These are things that are very doable. The issue of contractual employment, as my colleague has said, and that's why I said employment and labor relations. The capital-labor relation is always in a way that labor is disenfranchised. So the issue of giving contracts is very deliberate to simply try and disenfranchise workers. So you're not giving in this context, let me look at UHC. So you want UHC, and the pillar of UHC is to have a well-trained, efficient, and motivated healthcare workforce. But you issue contracts and give doctors, nurses, clinical officers under UHC inferior terms to those who are already in employment, and want them and push them to work as hard as the others already in employment. That works against UHC. And let me say also this that very clearly. I don't know who's advising on this UHC agenda, especially on human resources for health. But if this is the advice that will continue being given, then you will sabotage UHC. That is the reality that we must face. And I think it has come out clearly. A very good case definition is the doctors, nurses, clinical officers who are currently manning the isolation and treatment centers repurposed for UHC to work in UHC, in isolation and treatment centers, and they have no form of cover. They are being paid inferior salaries. They have worked for 5 months with no pay. That is how you will kill that UHC agenda.
It's not lost on all of us also that there were 21 days, right, that were given in terms of a notice. And then these talks or these, maybe consensus building fora now have been introduced literally a day to the day when tools would be downed. Do you see that could be, that they had all this time to get in touch, but nothing was done until literally the last minute? Does that send any kind of a message to you?
I'll say this. I think when we issued the strike notices, when for the first time you are seeing a lot of effort and frantic efforts to try and engage us and talk to us, and we put forth the demands. We've been to the Senate Health Committee thrice before this, and I think the message that was sent last week was that the actors, Council of Governors, Ministry of Health, SRC, boycotted that meeting. That was a signal. They have a chance to redeem themselves this week. If they go down that route again, and come the following week and time has lapsed, I can assure you, let everyone suffer if that is what it will take for people who are in authority to take these issues seriously.
When the two parliamentary committees were reaching out to you, the National Assembly and the Senate Committee, was there any sort of an explanation as to why they were coming to you at this late in the day? I mean, 21 days down the road and they hadn't spoken to you, and now is when they're saying, we're going to have a sitting on Wednesday and Thursday. Why not last week, Wednesday or Thursday?
Let me clarify that for the National Assembly Health Committee, they called us 3 days after we issued the strike notice.
Okay.
That was the first meeting on 18th, if I remember correctly. Yes, it was on 18th. We went back to the National Assembly Health Committee on 25th, and what equally happened is that the committee made recommendations. Those recommendations were adopted by the entire National Assembly the other week on 2nd of December. So this is now a parliamentary decision that gave orders on what needs to be done. So we are at a point where the entire National Assembly has actually adopted these recommendations. And the recommendations are to basically sort out all these matters. But the recommendations are supposed to be implemented by those who are in the executive. And by executive, I mean the ministry. I mean also the Council of Governors, which is the executive arm of the county government.
Mm-hmm.
So they're supposed to come on board now and implement these orders that were given. The Senate Health Committee, Senate being the custodian of devolution, came in late, and they agreed. And this I'll really cite what Senator Leina said, that they had come in late and they understood that, but they were requesting that we allow them to take charge of the process. And let me also say this very clearly. If the two houses will engage in politics with us, we are not interested in politics. If they will take this process politically, then what happens next will not be on the doctors. It will be on the same people.
We want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. And this is Dr. Mwachonda Chibanzi, the Secretary General of KMPDU and the National Chairman of the Union of Clinical Officers, Peterson Washira. Asante sana for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And a very good conversation. I hope they will be able to listen.
We hope so too.
Thank you so very much.
Time for us to take a break on KTN Home. This conversation continues in the next hour. We'll be speaking with the Nurses Union and we'll be joined by Boaz Onchari. He's the chairman of the Kenya National Union of Nurses Nairobi branch. We'll also be speaking to the chair of the Health CEC's Forum countrywide, and this is Dr. Andrew Mulwa. We'll also reach out to the Senator Ledama Olekina. He's a member of the Health Committee, and like Dr. Mwachonda has said, he's the one who reached out to the union and said, okay, we know we are coming in late, but please allow us to have this conversation and see what we can do to resolve this matter. We are talking health and healthcare issues today. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, Back shortly on KTN Home.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So, as you listen to that and as you hear what the clinical officers are saying and what the doctors are saying and what the nurses are saying, basically this is a conversation that has happened before. They have attempted to have the same conversations. Like Peterson was just telling us, he was there in Sierra Leone fighting Ebola. They came back, and part of the reason why they had been sent, in fact, they were told, when you come back, tell us what lessons we can learn, what we can implement to ensure that we never face the kind of hardship that those countries have faced. They came back and they did a report, and as far as he's concerned, that was not implemented.
The Secretary General of the KMPDU said something that I found particularly interesting, and that's why I focused on it. The arrogance that he spoke of. If you are dealing with decision makers who do not seem to take whatever you are telling them seriously, can one genuinely expect any forward movement on these issues? If you're dealing with people who every time you bring up your matters, you are deemed as people who are simple noise makers and people who have nothing of substance to actually contribute. But of interest, where on earth do we find such people with such negative, corrosive, and exceedingly harmful attitudes? Where do we find them?
In government.
Government.
And why do we keep them?
C'est la question. I mean, look, we're not.
A senior official walked into a meeting and said, if it's these noisemakers, I'm not sitting. Walked out.
That's someone who doesn't know their job, actually. And such a person should actually be given lighter duties, don't you think? Things that don't tax them as much as this. Because these aren't noisemakers. These are citizens of this country who have a very important role.
They're doing their job and they're making demands on an agreement that you had with them. They're not pulling something out of the hat here. They're not pulling something out of the blue or non-existing. It's an agreement that you had with them. So you call them noisemakers? The people that you essentially call on to save your life at some point.
People who are actually demanding the very things that will guarantee that the services they are employed to provide are provided in the best way possible. How can they possibly be a nuisance?
They were.
The real nuisance is such individuals with such negative and corrosive attitudes.
What Peterson has said many times, and he has kept repeating, is that it's not clinical officers who are on strike.
No.
It's the government that is on strike. And the clinical officers and nurses are urging the government to come out of strike and do its job.
But I think Peterson has the right handle on it, because the strike is this attitude of not doing what they're supposed to do for the people of Kenya.
It's the government that's on strike.
He actually has.
He's got it right,
He's actually
man.
got it.
I've never thought about it like that, ever. But he's actually right. Because essentially, you're the one who's not doing your job.
And hasn't been doing it for
So you
quite
actually
some time.
have been on strike. You have been striking
Consistently.
all this time. Consistently. Because that's what it is. Downing your tools. They are not a conducive environment for you to get your job done, or for whatever reason. You are the one who's actually not doing your job. So we all will stand here and allow you to pick up your tools and do what you need to do, and then we will all continue. You're actually the one who's on strike. You're the one who's not working.
You're the one who's not working.
But on another note, the thing that I find alarming and really genuinely disturbing is how it is the ethos around the civil service, how low it has fallen, to the point where anyone who seeks the very thing that they're supposed to look forward to, their right in terms of the employment rights, is considered a bother.
Yeah.
So what isn't a bother? And so these people, what is their focus really, if it isn't service provision for these very same people?
You can see that attitude. That's how even the BBI is still not considering how they can put the Health Services Commission as part of an entrenched constitutional commission. Just make it an organ somewhere so that we can allow the politicians to have a say on how matters are handled when it comes to healthcare. More and more conversations on health. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, build up of
Traffic.
traffic still on Mombasa Road. We're looking around the city, coming into the CBD, then from Thika Road. Again, Forest Road behaving very well today. We're looking at a holdup of traffic then on Lumuru Road, all the way from the village market, moving slowly, snaking past the Aga Khan Hospital. As you then get towards the city centre, you can use Forest Road as an option to get into the CBD. We're going to see heightened levels of traffic then on Muranga Road. It's going to take some time to get off of this one, and moving very slowly then into the CBD as well. Coming out of Westlands, also slow as you then get to the city, to the university roundabout, but it's not so bad. Uhuru Highway, however, from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, is moving very slowly this morning, guys. This one's going to take some patience to get out of it. Okay, so it's Monday morning musings. We're likely to see it be like this for another hour or so in different parts, where it's looking good, however, in Gong Road, not bad at all. As you approach the City Mortuary roundabout, then go towards Valley Road or then down Gong Road. Should be okay, right? Let us know if you do get stuck. We can spread the word about where not to go or where to go if you find an alternate route. Spice FMKE on Twitter, 40127 on text.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
2.5
the
minutes
only
after
way
8.
to start
This is
your
Kenya's
day.
biggest conversation, and the conversation continues as we hear today's proverb from CT Muga. We are having a conversation with our healthcare workers. We've talked with the doctors, with clinical officers. Doctors have suspended their strike notice for a further 14 days to allow for conversation with the National Assembly Committee on Health and the Senate Committee on Health. Clinical officers are on strike. Nurses are on strike. We'll shortly be speaking to the Nurses Union representative. CT, what is today's proverb?
Those who are absent are always wrong.
Those who are absent are always wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So now on Thursday or Wednesday, when doctors meet with the Senate Committee and everybody else, clinical officers and nurses will be wrong.
In this particular instance, I do not believe they will be wrong. The person or persons or the representation of persons here who seem to be constant and consistently wrong seem to be the government.
They're the ones, eh?
It appears so.
Boaz Onchari is the chairman of the Kenya National Union of Nurses Nairobi branch, and he joins us on the line now. Boaz, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you and welcome.
We heard it intimated by your colleague of the Clinical Officers Union, but
Yes.
we want to hear it straight from you. Are nurses on strike, Boaz?
I can confirm that nurses nationwide started their strike today at 12 midnight. And yes, the strike has kicked off.
So this is at the culmination of the 14-day strike notice. Just tell us, between the time you issued your strike notice and today, what kind of talk and conversations have you had with your employer?
Since we issued a 14-day strike notice, we have not had any engagement other than the one that we had with the Senate via Zoom. And then we gave our presentations and our demands to the government. But then, since nothing has happened, nothing has changed, they are only giving us false promises that indeed we are going to look into these issues. But all along, these are the same stories that they've been telling us. You realize that what we've been asking and what we are asking are not new things, are not something that we just wake up one day and say that these are our demands. These are issues that are really affecting us as healthcare workers, And it is time we tell the government, which is not serious, to actually come in and ensure that we as the frontline health workers are protected. When we are asking for protection so that we can offer efficient services, is that too much from a government that is supposed to take care of its citizens? In any case, the monetary aspect comes at number 3. But then the first thing that we are telling the government is protect us. We are seeing a number of healthcare workers now contracting COVID-19. They are going to isolation. Who are going to serve Kenyans in these hospitals? We are seeing nurses and other healthcare workers dying. For how long are we going to remain silent as our colleagues succumb to this virus? So that is why we've said enough is enough. We cannot continue to plead with a government that is not listening to us. But we better take safe than also remain at home.
So, Boaz, you're saying that you have only engaged with senators. The clinical officers say that they have engaged with the Ministry of Labor to some extent. Doctors have had engagement with the National Assembly, the senators, the Ministry of Labor and Ministry of Health officials to varying degrees. Are you saying that the only conversation that you've had since the 14 days strike notice was issued is only with the senators? You haven't heard anything from the Ministry of Health or anything from the Ministry of Labor?
You know, the issue of the Ministry of Labor, this is something that the government just likes to go and hide behind, because anytime we issue an industrial action, then they run to the Ministry of Labor saying that indeed the services that we're offering are essential. Then we let them suspend, we go for negotiations or rather reconciliatory talks. This issue of reconciliatory talks is just to trying to avert a strike that we have given the employer enough time, but then they run towards the last minute when we are about to set off our strike is when now they bring in this issue of the Ministry of Labor. Yes, at one point I know our national leaders led by our General Secretary Seth Panyako engaged with the Ministry of Labor, and you saw the kind of response they gave. What they did is, these are issues that need to be addressed, but then even the minister did not see the need of us not being protected. What he only said is, we are requesting you to continue offering services as these issues are looked into. But for how long are they going to look into these issues? Those are the same talks they have been telling us since January. Now we are in December, so we cannot buy their decision as at now.
If I may ask this question, given the length of time that not only have strikes been called for, but they've actually been enacted, is there any time when any of the promises that the government has made to you as a union, has there a time when they've actually been fulfilled? And if they have been fulfilled, what were these promises?
I can tell you the last time when a government when the government actually fulfilled, it is even through a strike that is when we push them to the wall and they are able to give in to a certain demand. But look at the issues we are asking for. A CBA that is supposed to be negotiated and implemented in 3 years, it is now more than 3 years. That means that CBA becomes null and void, has to be renegotiated again for it to be implemented. So I can tell you this issue. Look at the number of strikes that we've gone. We as nurses, how many strikes have we actually, or the industrial actions have we called for this year? More than 6. So you can imagine that this is an employer who wakes up, tells you that I'm going to implement this, then along the way abandons the process, then forces us again to go back to the streets. Look at what the counties are doing. They come in and give false promises based on an agreements which they don't honor. So I can tell you from where we sit, the government has failed and has failed totally. It has failed Kenyans, and they need to rethink on what they are doing.
Is there an absolute minimum that you would listen to? Because let's look at it as we speak today. Doctors who most often work hand in hand with nurses at hospital, in the majority of cases, there's a doctor and there's a nurse hand in hand. They are holding off on the strike for the next 14 days. What is the least, Boaz, that you would be able to listen to and hear if it is offered?
You know, our demands as we had put them, they remain our bare minimums, simply because the employer has not given any counter offer. So our demand still stands. We need to be protected. Look at the exposure that we have at our workplaces. And then you end up giving me a risk allowance of 3,850. If Boaz was to contract COVID today, I will have to cater for bills in any institution that I will have to go. We have seen our colleagues who have succumbed to the virus. We have a nurse in Busia who was admitted to ICU. She was in ICU for 23 days, and then after that, she succumbed. She has a bill of 2.3 million that we nurses are now coming in, chipping in so that we can offset that bill, and then she left a young family. So if the employer cannot cater for all this, a colleague has succumbed in the line of duty, you contract the virus and then you are told you are on your own, surely. So how do you want us to work if this is the kind of an environment that the employer is providing? Even if we were to be fair enough, the issue of our health, the issue of our... Remember, as we interact with these patients, we still go home. So if we get these viruses and we're going back to our families, we're using public means of transport, we are engaging with mama mbogas, we will be the super spreaders. So when we are engaging the government, telling them that, number one, protect us, give us the requisite equipment that we are required for us to work efficiently and protect ourselves and also the clients that we are serving. The number two, ensure that we have a group life cover so that should I succumb to this, at least I have left something behind knowing that my family will be catered for ABC. Ensure that in those institutions we have somewhere that we can access also these services, because like they say, we are not immune to this virus, and that is why you've seen of late it is like this virus has now turned to the healthcare workers. So we cannot sit and continue suffering when we know that the government is in a position to provide all that we are asking. These are not new things, and continue suffering. We cannot continue suffering. There is no right time to call for an industrial action. If our colleagues have suspended theirs for 14 days, it is well, because that is their union, that is their in-house. Each institution has its mechanisms of dealing with their own issues. What I know is that there is no hospital that can function without a nurse.
Please go ahead.
I want to tell you that even if they have suspended their strike, we, the nurses, are on strike, and there is no service that is going to... A doctor cannot serve that client alone. The clinic officers are out. We are out. Which services are going to be offered in those institutions? Remember, any client, the first person you will meet before you even see that doctor is a nurse who has to take those vitals, who has to ensure maybe there investigation required before you even meet that doctor. So if all these are not going to be done because these people are not there, then how are services going to be offered?
You know, the role and the function and the importance of healthcare workers cannot ever be overstated. It is not possible. It's not just mandatory, it's critical. However, yes. I want to tone down the conversation and ask a simpler question. Do you have members who actually work for private institutions?
Yes, we have members working in private institutions.
So when you call a strike like this, how do they respond to that? Or does the strike only involve those who are in public service or in government service?
This is what happens. Our members in private institutions, remember, there is what we call a CBA. A CBA, for instance, look at MTRH and the Kenyatta. They will not be joining us in the strike simply because the employer has put in measures and has actually provided what we are demanding for. So those who are in private institutions, we normally have a CBA. Go to Kijabe Mission Hospital. They have a CBA that stipulates this is what they're supposed to get in terms of their risk allowance, in terms of their take home, the provision for the medical cover. So for those ones, they will not proceed because the employer has put in mechanisms. But look at the county government. These are the worst employers that we've ever seen.
The county governments. How so?
The county governments are, look at now they are clinging on, they want to hold health. We've been pushing for a health service commission, but you realize that the governors are the ones saying that it will undermine the fruits of devolution. they have not shown any, as in they're not in a position to tell us how they're managing this health. You've seen health is the most affected. These governors want to control the finances and everything in health, but then at the same time, they don't want to provide us with what we are demanding for. So we've been pushing for a health service commission, which was struck off the BBI. If BBI was able to get 500 signatures in less than 5 days, but you cannot produce a PPE. Yes.
Yes.
But you cannot provide a PPE to the farthest dispensary in Turkana or in Mandera.
Mr. Onchari, we feel your pain. We really do. But the question that my colleague asked was with reference to, it was a strong statement, really strong, and I believe it requires some qualification. You refer to the county governments as the worst employers. What do you mean, sir?
They are not taking our issues seriously. Look at, I think one of the governors okay, let me not mention, but there's a governor who clearly came out and said that if you want to proceed for a strike, go. It will not help you. We will look for others and give them contracts. As if, how do you take health workers that now you proceed? We'll get some who have also gone to school like you. We'll give them 3 months contract. You will do, they go. You see, now those kind of talks are what we are looking, and that is why I'm referring to these guys are the worst in terms of managing health issues in the counties.
Let's bring in the chair of the CEC's forum across all the 47 counties, and this is Dr. Andrew Mulwa. He is a county executive committee member for health in Makueni County. Dr. Mulwa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you. And asante sana for joining us right here in the Situation Room. You've heard from the chair of the National Union of Nurses Nairobi branch, Mr. Boaz Onchari, who says, as far as they are concerned, in fact, counties are the worst employers ever. Let's just begin with your response to that. And you've heard the reasons why.
Thank you. I think to begin with, I would say that one, it cannot be true that simply because of a statement, because you qualified the statement by saying certain governor that is not mentioned says you can get people from the market. It cannot be true that we are the worst employer. And I'll begin by saying that immediately before devolution, I was working for the national government when health was in the national government. I was working in a rural community, working in a rural hospital, and I know the challenges that we used to have in the district and in the district hospital. And I have seen the transformation that counties have done in that period, and how, in terms of health system support, issues have been addressed. And I must begin by saying, when I talk about our health system, I am talking now about the whole spectrum of commodities. I'm talking about healthcare financing. I'm talking about health information systems. I'm talking about infrastructure development. I am talking about human resources for health and service delivery. And, I look at it from health system support. Of course, I appreciate that the one component of this system approach that has not really appreciated the value of devolution is human resources for health, which I think is what leads us to the conversation that we're having today, that there have been industrial issues, human resource issues in devolved health with advent of devolution. And this has been caused by many reasons, which broadly speaking, I will start by saying any country that has had devolution, you can start with Mexico, you can talk about Fiji, you can talk about Indonesia, you can talk about countries that move from central system to devolved systems. They have faced the same challenges that we are facing today. It is not unique to Kenya that the human resource component for health feels disenfranchised by devolution. And one of the reasons why that happens is because, one, when health is devolved and the supervision of health moves from one central organ to the counties, there is first the feeling that healthcare workers are moving to local authorities, kanjos, and that feeling alone brings anxiety amongst them. And the challenges that we face, especially in our setup, where the counties, despite being independent, are so dependent on resources coming from national government, and a lot of times there are delays in disbursement of funds, which affect how salaries are paid and such like things. Then also, we must also be cognizant of the fact that these close supervision that comes from counties being able to be close to where service delivery is happening, and therefore absenteeism and all those other things that happen with closer supervision. Also, like by themselves.
Dr. Mulwa, and I can appreciate what you're saying, but if we look at you talked about some of these things not being unique to Kenya, but one thing that does seem to be very unique in this position and where we are right now is the strike issue. It's been said over and over and over and over again. We're going to go on strike. 100 strikes in a very short period, 100 strike notices in a very short period of time. Something is not being done. Needs are not being addressed. The most recent ones that we're talking about right now are based on an agreement that was made. We heard that there was insurance that was supposed to be provided. We heard coming from the top executive in the land that this money was going to be made available. They're going on strike not because of want of what to do. They're going on strike because an agreement has not been kept and honored. How are we going to get away from this thing?
Let me speak and be honest that the issue of, like, for example, the current issues, and I want to agree there are real issues. One, the provision of PPEs, and this has been my position and will continue to be my position. Protecting healthcare workers remains a paramount responsibility of the service provider, whether private or public, and no healthcare worker should go to be exposed to infection for lack of PPE. And I keep telling the healthcare workers in Makueni now that if you feel you are not protected enough, you have no business going to the front line because it is important to protect the healthcare workers. So the issue of PPEs, and we have had conversations with the CECs, we have had conversations with the directors, we have had conversations with the unions, we have had conversations with the Council of Governors, and that is non-negotiable. For everyone who is working on the front line, they must be protected. And these are basics of medical training.
But they're not.
You are not fair,
Dr. Mulwa, they are not. I can understand giving an edict and saying that this is the situation and how it must be, but they are not. That's one of the reasons why they're going on strike. These things that you're saying must be provided are not being provided, and they're saying because of that we are not going to work.
I would appreciate if I got a single case of a healthcare worker who was told, get in the COVID-19 treatment unit, get into the outpatient, and you have no PPE. Where PPE is a mask, surgical, whether surgical or N95, whether if you're getting into a city, you need to have a full coverall, you have to face shield, all those things. I am not aware, and we have had this conversation with the union. And by the way, for the record, for the current strike, we have been having conversations with the unions from as far back as August this year. All the issues that are being raised, of course, they are because we are managing a complex health system with 47 counties and national government. There are issues that have been raised by the unions that are specific to some counties and not others. And there are issues that have been raised by the unions that are beyond even when you look at an issue like, for example, the issue of the Health Service Commission. That is beyond what Dr. Mulwa can do. That is beyond what any governor can do. That is even beyond what the Ministry of Health can do. This is a constitutional issue that the legal framework currently as is provides for devolved health. And therefore, if that has to change, then it is upon now the political class, the the leadership in the Senate, the leadership in the National Assembly to do constitutional amendments. That I have no control. The other issue that we have no control is the issue of the pandemic that came in this year. And being a pandemic, it cannot be covered fast as a normal illness, because that is what I think health insurance policies in this country or in the world are. And therefore, and you had NHIF say we cannot cover this, but for purposes of our healthcare workers, we have what we call comprehensive health insurance. Every county, and we had a meeting with the governors last week, and every county is either having one, because there are counties that have NHIF comprehensive cover, there are counties that have the normal NHIF plus comprehensive private insurance cover, and of all the counties, I have not had a single county that is not working towards having comprehensive health cover.
Dr. Mulo, we will continue with this conversation short after this short break. We're having a conversation with Dr. Andrew Mulwa. He is a CEC for Health in Makueni County. He's also the chair of the National CEC's Forum on Health. We've also been having a conversation with Boaz Onchari. He is the chairman of the Nairobi branch of the Kenya National Union of Nurses. Nurses are on strike countrywide. Clinical officers are on strike countrywide. Doctors have suspended their strike notice for further 14 days so that they can have a meeting with the senators and committee members of the National Assembly. We'll be bringing in the senator for Narok, Ledama Olekina, who is a member of the Health Committee in the Senate, to understand what they want to do to resolve this standoff with the workers. And we'll also keep Dr. Mulo on the line for a while longer so we can have this conversation. Keep it right here. 27 minutes after 8, we are live on Spice FM on KTN Home, and we stream the show online as well. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nyeri. They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be.
Just to be very honest with each other here, not all of us are going to get tall, dark, and handsome. Not all of us are going to get 0.5s or chotaras. Some of us have to learn the short guys. Some of us have to learn those pot-belly people. Some of us have to learn older men or younger men.
Spice.
Don't ask your partner if he or she enjoyed it. I think the approach should always be, if she's enjoyed the journey, she will let you know. She'll tell you, hey, maze, your bus is big. Mi sijaipanda basi kubwa kama hii. Juu hata hii basi, hiyo mafuta tulieka yote, imetuleta hapa vizuri. Hii basi iko na nguvu. Hii basi iko na nguvu.
Spice.
Now into a relationship, it becomes like you've stopped your life, and then now me, I am your life. You see, like, what happened to your life? What happened to you? What did you used to do?
And women are guilty about that. No,
is your wife listening to the show?
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. Spice FM. Spice up your life. The weather with
All right, we're
Spice
still looking at
FM.
mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, currently at 18 degrees, going to highs of 28 today. It's also mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 19, high will be 27 and lows of 14. Partly sunny conditions in Nyeri at 17 with highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret at 11. That will be the low for today, going to highs of 23. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu at 18, highs of 27. And 18 also mostly sunny conditions in Kakamega, going to highs of 28 and lows of 16. Experiencing light rain in Mombasa at 25 degrees with highs of 30 and lows of 24. It's also mostly sunny in Malindi at 18, highs of 28 and lows of 17. It's partly sunny in Kampala at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is partly sunny at 27 with highs of 32 and lows of 26. And it's mostly cloudy in Joburg at 16 degrees. It'll go to a high of 24 and lows of 15. Light rain in Lagos at the moment at 26. The high will be 31 and lows of 25. And finish things off in Kinshasa for now. It's partly sunny at 23. 31 will be the high, coming back down to lows of 23.
Spice up your life
All right, we're looking at some traffic on Kiambu Road. From Muthaiga to the DCI is bumper to bumper all the way to town. As you then get to the Pangani Tunnel, it's going to move a little bit slower on Thika Road, but it's not moving too badly. Thika Road is behaving very well today. As is Mombasa Road, it's not too terrible. Bumper to bumper situation in parts if you're around the SGR, moving then towards Cabanas and then out towards General Motors. Thereafter, you're all right. So you get to the roundabout at the Nyayo Stadium on Mombasa Road. It's going to slow down a little bit on Uhuru Highway, then out towards the CPT. Okay, that's what we're looking at. Not much in terms of traffic in other areas. Jogo Road looking good. If you're on the other end, Langata Road coming down towards Bagathi Way, then out towards Valley Road, or then towards the CBD, there you're fine as well. All right, Spice FM KE on Twitter. Talk to us or text on 40127.
Back 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online, talking about healthcare workers this morning. Adonija on Twitter has reached out and said, you know what, we're only talking about nurses, clinical officers and doctors. We're forgetting the other healthcare workers who work in these facilities, even including the community health workers who are going around the county and the homes, taking care of the people who are in home-based care. Those also need the same thing. They need PPEs. They need to know that they are protected in case they contracted COVID-19. But let's first of all bring in Senator Ledamo Olekina of Narok County. He's a member of the Health Committee. When we were speaking with the Secretary General of the KMPDU, he told us that Senator Olekina is one of those who reached out to them and said, guys, we know we are coming to this conversation late, but please give us some time to have this conversation. Senator, good morning.
Good morning to you, Eric. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room once again.
Thank you very much, Eric, and your colleagues.
Good morning.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. Good morning.
Senator, on the line with us is also Dr. Andrew Mulwa. He is the CEC for Makueni, in charge of health, and the chair of the CEC's Forum on Health countrywide. So let's just begin with the meeting that you want to have with the Doctors' Union. Why only the Doctors' Union? Why haven't you reached out to the clinical officers and the nurses to participate in this conversation?
Well, you see, you have got to start from somewhere. And it's rather unfortunate, and I apologize that we've kept a blind eye and not really paid attention to the issues that are affecting the health workers in this country, doctors, clinical officers, and also community health workers. Yet health is devolved. But we decided after we got information that there was an imminent strike, which was supposed to take place today, to reach out to the doctors and call them so that they can share with us their story and we can be able to understand where they're coming from so that we see what we can be able to assist when it comes to our role as Parliament. And just to begin, I have tremendous respect for, I think his name is Dr. The Secretary General.
Chibanzi Mwachonda.
His name, Chidanzi.
No.
Mwachonda, yeah. And
Mwachonda, just say Mwachonda, you good.
I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Okay.
And Dr. Goody, I think Goody, and there was a few other doctors who came in because they told us their story. We listened to them. And when we listened to their story, that is when we discovered that we have the ability to resolve their problems. Because some of the issues that we are raising are pertinent issues. They are raising issues to do with allowances. They are raising issues that deals with SRC in terms of the approvals of the allowances, yet they have not been paid. They are also raising issues about insurance cover for the health workers, which is something which is very important. They also raise the issue of an isolation center, which is strictly for the doctors and health workers. They also raised the issue on the need to be able to deploy more doctors so that we can be able to deal with this pandemic. Because, of course, during this period of time, in fact, even if you read the Health Act, there are certain things which have got to be done extraordinary. So these are pertinent issues that we believe we can be able to resolve them. So we decided that instead of calling the Council of Governors, they had concerns, specific concerns on specific counties. So with my experience working in the Public Accounts and Investment Committee, I know what it takes to be able to get governors to move. You invite them. If they refuse to come, you summon them. If they fail to honor the summons, you penalize each one of them 500,000 shillings. And if they don't appear again, you continue penalizing them. And then also from that, you write a very damaging report that can lead to serious consequences. So these things are there, Eric. So we reached out to them, and I appreciate the fact that they listened to us. Now it is upon us to be able to ensure that we follow through, even with the Ministry of Health, particularly on issues of the PPEs. And I think you can give us credit, the Senate Health Committee, because when we went to KEMSA, we told the minister, you had directed these guys to release these PPEs. Put it in writing now, because these guys do not want to release them with just a word of mouth. And immediately that happened. So I think we are making some progress, and it's always good in any mediation when you've got some sort of goodwill, because then that encourages you to even be able to seek more conciliation.
But Senator, let me ask this question. Prior to the strike notice and the intent which was supposed to be actualized today, these issues pertaining to our healthcare workers had been in the public domain and have been there for some time. Are you saying that you as a Senate or the committee, you're waiting for the 11th hour to act? Why?
No. We were not waiting for the 11th hour to work. It is always good in any matter for you to exhaust all avenues which are out there. The Ministry of Health is there. You know what I feel about the money being left in the Ministry of Health instead when a function which is devolved. SRC is there. There are institutions which are supposed to work. But since they have failed to perform their duty, then it is a duty now to take them to task. So it's not really a matter of waiting until the 11th hour. It's a matter of allowing and believing that when institutions are being put in place, they can be able to work. But now, since they have failed to work, we need to understand what is going on and reasonably so have those solutions.
Senator, also, these are not new issues, right? If we look at what we've heard from the nurses section, if we look at what we've heard from clinical officers, look what we heard from doctors, these are not things that they said 21 days ago. These are things that they have been saying for years. Sure, the issues of COVID have come about when they talk about protective gear, but we're talking about a CBA 2017, and we're now in 2020, right? That have not been put into place. Is there some kind of guarantee? Agree. Is there some kind of guarantee that we are not going to take steps backwards from where we are right now?
Well, let me put it this way. Life has got no guarantees. And I think the key most important thing is to keep trying. What we have to resolve currently are the issues that can be resolved immediately. When it comes to the issue of the CBA, which is, I know it's paramount to the life of these doctors, it is something that we engage and we ensure that it is budgeted for. The biggest problem we normally have is that whenever there is a CBA, then no one pushes for that money to be budgeted.
Why?
Because because no one, sometimes the left hand is doing, the right hand doesn't know what the left
who's supposed to do it then? Let me ask the question so that we understand and know if we're to lay blame, who exactly the blame, on whose feet the blame should actually lie.
Now, let me put it this way. When it comes to issues of budgets are done by county governments, but they are advised by the CARA, which is the money we send to the county governments. But even so, the money begins with the National Assembly and Treasury. So when they put together, the Senate doesn't have a role when it comes to the issue of the budget. It's just a matter of really, just coming into the issue of, CARA and DORA, on the division of revenue between the two levels of government. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty of the budgets, it is carried out by the National Assembly. But now, because health is devolved, it is about time now for us to look at what counties are budgeting for. Have they factored in this collective bargaining agreement, which has now been signed between the doctors and between the doctors and the county governments or the Ministry of Health? So really, it's about time that we bring all these people together and then try to, call for action,
Dr. Muller, there's
And
something
I believe-
I'd like to ask you. You mentioned something that seemed to respond to a question we had asked earlier, and the question was with reference to what our colleague, a representative of the nurses, had said about the nature and the status of county governments as, I am paraphrasing here, as horrible employers. Now, tell me, in your view, of course, this is not true. That one you have stated. So, what is it that, in your mind, the county governments have done that makes them good employers? With reference to the health workers, specifically.
Thank you. I think first I'll begin by saying you are talking about 47 plus 1 unit, and
yes,
not
I am.
1. And therefore, if you did a quick analysis of each and every county, you will realize that there are many things that have happened. Like, for example, let me begin by just talking about the sheer numbers of healthcare workers that have been and that are in the county. I think prior to devolution, we have like doubled the number of healthcare workers in the establishment. That, of course, helps in terms of the service delivery, in terms of the fatigue, in terms of the number of hours that healthcare workers have to put in. We also have, and this have implemented, I think, to the last, the CBA for the doctors. Let me begin with the doctors, because we have a signed CBA with the doctors, and the counties implemented what was required. The CBAs that are pending are the CBAs for the nurses and for the clinical officers, which, like Honorable Senator has already mentioned, there are other organs of government that have to give a nod to negotiations that have happened between us, that is counties and the national government, the employer, and which is SRC and National Treasury. So we have a few issues with the nurses and the clinical officers union that are, of course, resource dependent. That if SRC is okay and National Treasury is okay, commit that they will get the resources, then those CBAs can be completed even within a day, because the body and the discussions have been ongoing for the last 3 or 4 years on the same. Then I think the issue of I talked about numbers. Where I come from, in Makueni in particular, the healthcare workers are paid in time. I must say, are paid in time. I think, except the month of August every year, where counties have challenges with disbursements from National Treasury, our salaries are paid in time. We also have give them study leaves for those who want to go and study, and we give them on full pay. We pay for school fees. We, like, for example, where I also come from, we ensure that promotions are done by merit and in time, so that healthcare workers get their promotions when they are due. In fact, we have been resolving some of the issues of healthcare workers.
Sorry, I think we've dropped you. We've dropped Dr. Muller as he continues. So John will get him back. Senator, as we hear what Dr. Muller is saying, what's happening around the counties and all, and the issues that you've raised, getting into CBAs not included in the budgets, and then budgets are then shared with with the assemblies, and then they're approved. Then doctors realize at the end that, okay, so what we discussed is not what we are getting. How do you intend and how do you hope to resolve this issue? You're saying that all these things, as you looked at them, are things that you can resolve and ensure that the workers can go back to work and they'll be happy. How do you intend to get that done?
There are always two sides to a coin. It is important for us to listen to the reasons given by the county governments, these are the bodies as to why they are not able to implement the CBA. Then from there, we will be well informed for us to advise what needs to be done. But there's one big problem which I hope we can be able to resolve. The fact that a lot of money is left in the national government, yet health is devolved. I'll put it this way. There is an insurance policy which is being rolled out, albeit illegally, which we are going to deal seriously into it because we've attempted to stop it from being rolled out without the procurement process being carried out by NHIF. And that is about 6.3 billion shillings worth of insurance. But it is the national government which is sending it out to civil servants and the people of NYS. Now, if more money can be found to be able to pay for those in the health sector, why can't more money be found to be able to pay, reimburse, or enumerate these doctors in the right way? So really, that is the question that we need to ask Treasury. We need to sit down with Treasury and inquire from Treasury why it is that they cannot be able to release that money, and they're releasing money for other things.
Will that question be
really
asked, Senator? Will it be asked directly to Treasury as to answer the question? Because it's not the first time we've heard that in a lot of cases, even from the county on other matters, that the release of funds from Treasury seems to be the bottleneck as to why things cannot be done. So will this question actually be asked and an answer be shared as to this is the problem that we have? Being one, we don't have money, so this is where we are. Being two, that all right, we were prioritizing other things before this, or being three, that we just didn't get all our ducks in a row. Will the actual question be given? Because it seems that we're playing merry-go-round with this thing and we're not hitting the nail on the head.
I think you know who you're talking to. I've got nothing to hide or nothing to hold on to. If a question has got to be asked, I shall ask the question. That's number one. But I think the bigger problem we have is the issue of priorities. I wonder what could be more important than the life of a doctor.
Absolutely.
What could be more important than the welfare of a doctor who you expect to be able to take care of you, when you're not well. Sometimes I just think some people, behave as if they live in another world and they are not aware of their surroundings. So I think it's about time that we take these people to task. We demand for proper planning, because it is not that we do not have this money in this country. I can tell you this without any fear or contradiction, that if the president wants money right now to be found for a particular project, that money will be found. All he has to say, allocate the money. I'll give you a point in a very good example. Right now, we know very well that there is this scuffle between Nairobi City County and NMS. We know that Article 219 is quite sensitive when it comes to the issue of the share of revenue of a county government raised by the national government. It has to be sent to the county revenue fund without any deduction. But NMS is already carrying out projects. Where are they getting that money? Yet Sonko has not given them a penny. So the national government is giving them money. So if the president wants to find money, he will find money. Whether it is borrowing, whether it is going, tapping on money which is being held by other parastatals, he can be able to get that. And all he does, he just tells the CS Treasury, allocate 10 billion to NMS.
Senator, in the spirit of honesty and speaking forthrightly, this money that you've mentioned it more than once, because we've talked to you more than once on these matters, held within the Ministry of Health. Is it just, I'm asking purely as a layman, is it money that's supposed to go to the counties which is just sitting there and not being disbursed? Or is it money that was budgeted for but has not been released so that the Ministry of Health can do whatever it is that they're supposed to do?
You know what it is, I can tell you, is that people do not fully believe in the idioms that form follows functions, or money follows functions. If you have already devolved a function, what business do you have retaining money in the national government? Unless it is money for the level 6 hospital. So really, it is this behavior of not wanting to let go. You still want to control. We've got serious matters that we've raised even with the Ministry of Health, where when you see certain trainings are being carried out, instead of that money being sent to county government for them to carry out that training is done by the national government. This grip that you do not want to control, we have to let go. That's the only way that we are going to be able to make progress. Devolution can work if the people who are constitutionally mandated to carry certain functions are provided with money. They are provided with an environment, enabling environment for them to be able to perform their functions. And I can tell you, my biggest challenge is control. If you look at, there was a letter written by my good friend Ukuri Atani, which was about directing Sonko to release money to NMS. Ask yourself one question: who gave him that power to be able to do that? When you look at Article 287, when in terms of the 187, when the transfer of functions, when you look at 2A, it clearly states that arrangements shall be put in place for money to be sent, but it doesn't say National Treasury. It is, and then when you look at 2B, it says the constitutional responsibility shall remain in the level of government that function has been devolved to. So really, if you're going to ask me a question constitutionally, you should also have the audacity to allow me to be part and parcel of the decision of giving out the money.
And we hope that you're going to ask those questions. I want to come back to this question as we conclude the interview this morning, both to you and to Dr. Andrew Muloa. As we speak right now, nurses and clinical officers across the country have downed their tools. That means many of the healthcare services that are provided by these two groups of people are not being provided. And we've heard even from clinical officers saying 90% of anesthetists, that means all ICU facilities around the country are not functioning. Nurses are not there to receive patients. So as we speak today, I'll start with you, Senator Olekina. You're going to have a meeting with doctors, but not with the clinical officers, but not with the nurses. Isn't it about time for you to invite the clinical officers and the nurses so that you can resolve this issue for all of them once and for all? Start with you, Senator.
Let me put it this way. We held our first meeting with the doctors. We have invited all these entities. We've invited the Ministry of Health. We've invited the Treasury. We've invited governors. We will take the opportunity to be able to raise this other question that you've put out there in terms of the clinical officers and in terms of nurses. Okay. And I believe that we will be able to make progress, because as we delve into these issues of the allowances in terms of their working environment, the working environment. If a working environment for a doctor is bad, of course, for the clinical officer and nurse is worse.
Yeah.
Because at least, the doctor just comes there, he goes, but the people who, carry out your vitals, who come in contact first with the patient is not the doctor. It is the clinical officers and the nurses. So really, I want to assure Kenyans that we will do our best.
Okay.
We will do our best. Let us be accused of having failed, but at least we will never be accused of not having tried. And since we know that the environment is ripe, and particularly because of the extraordinary circumstances that we are in right now, when it comes to the issue of COVID, of the pandemic, we can be able to make some headways.
Thank you very much, Senator. Dr. Mulwa, what would you like to say to the clinical officers and nurses?
First, I would like to say that, one, we have negotiations that are ongoing. Last week, I was in a meeting with PS Health and the PS Labor, under the leadership of the PS Labor, where these negotiations are ongoing with all the unions, the doctors, the clinical officers, and the nurses union. We mapped out our roadmap to ensure that we avert an industrial crisis. And I want to believe, because there is an overwhelming goodwill from the governors, from the ministry, and from everyone, that we shall be able to resolve these issues my prayer is that we will be able to have the strike suspended today, and therefore service delivery will not be affected in the counties. There is a lot of goodwill from the government that, considering the extraordinary circumstances that we are facing as a country and as a globe, that we will be able to get an amicable solution so that the citizens of this continue enjoying the services that they should enjoy from the healthcare workers. And there is a commitment from the government side that we need to resolve these issues once and for all, because like you've already mentioned, that these issues come and go around, come again, discuss the same issues. Like I was saying, there was another strike notice that had been issued sometimes in August. And the same issues that we are discussing are the same issues that we are discussing today. There was another strike notice that had been issued, I think, in February or thereabouts. They are the same issues. And in December last year, we had the same issues. And therefore, I think there is an overwhelming commitment. The governors, the Ministry of Health, the CS Health, the CS Labor, and SRC National Treasury have committed that we will have a definitive way forward on these issues so that they don't keep recurring. It's our hope that by close of business today, all the strikes will be suspended.
Thank you very much. We hope to see what happens with that. Dr. Andrew Mulwa, CEC Makueni, in charge of health and also the chair of all the health CECs countrywide. Asante sana for speaking to us. And member of the health committee in the Senate, Senator Ledamo Leina of Narok. Asante sana for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home at 5 minutes to 9. Join us again tomorrow morning on KTN Home from 7 to 9. These conversations happen on Spice FM from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday morning. So you can tune into that conversation on Spice FM. This is what we'll still be discussing, and we'll ask now you to participate and tell us what you feel about these doctors, nurses, and clinical officers strike countrywide. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
There's a lot of goodwill from the government, from the Council of Governors. This is not the first time. This is like the third strike notice that has been issued by healthcare workers this year alone. But this time, there's goodwill.
I suspect there is goodwill among some governors because the Secretary General of the union that encompasses doctors, dentists, and pharmacists cannot be simply speaking for the sake of speaking when he says that he has encountered governors, not people from the governors of governors, who have greeted these very discussions with a great deal of arrogance. And he isn't making it up. Now, goodwill is one thing. The manifestation of it is really what we are hoping to see. But talking of goodwill, the same with the committee that Senator Ledamo Leina is in. The doctors have talked about wanting their own commission, and this issue just keeps being avoided. If the teachers have one, why can't the doctors have one?
Absolutely.
What is this thing stopping them from having one?
And especially when you can see that it will address the issues that are being raised now.
Yes.
It's these human resource issues.
Yes.
Very many comments on social media. We'll be looking at them in the next hour. Someone says, Johanna Michael Wangenya says, it's funny that the Senate can impeach and acquit governors but cannot support the health sector.
One seems
Interesting
much more
point,
simple
isn't it?
than the other, isn't it? Yeah.
So we'll be having, the issue of the Nairobi governor being taken to the Senate this week. We'll see the kind of attention it receives. Let's see whether we have the same kind of attention being given to the plight of all Kenyans who seek health services. Because right now, as we speak this morning, you go to a health facility, you will not find a nurse. You will not find a clinical officer. There are very many health facilities in the country that are actually manned by nurses and clinical officers. You go to those ones today, they will not be working. So what does that mean? You go to very many of them where doctors are supposed to be working, so doctors could have gone on strike today, but they have not gone on strike. But doctors cannot work without the assistance of a nurse.
It's a disaster.
The assistance of clinical officers when they are going into surgeries and such. So what does that mean? Especially when you think about HIV services are provided primarily by clinical officers. The others like cancer and all such kind of support is provided by clinical officers. Those ones are not working today.
To deliver the patient to the doctor, nobody's going to be able to do that.
Imagine. Let's have that conversation in the next hour. 0719-012-600 is the number we'd like you to contribute and call in. We're coming to 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room. All the comments on social media, we'll be reading them shortly. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, Wacky Way is a mess this morning, folks. Building up because what we see of the construction taking place, what used to be 3 lanes, 2, 1, and reducing as the day goes by. So, this one, if you have not used the Red Hill bypass, you're going to be stuck on Wacky Way today, trying to get towards the Western roundabout. Okay, so that's a mess today. The Southern bypass, a few stops here and there, but it looks generally fine. We're looking also at traffic coming from Thika Road. It's not too terrible. Forest Road, to get off into the CBD might be better for you at this point. All right. General Mathenge Road, Mpaka Road, Westlands. Everybody's complaining this one because of the poor state of the roads. Those need to be worked on, but that's what's causing traffic, and everybody's having to use a longer route to get around. That we might have to use for now. Okay, Uhuru Highway also coming from the Nyayo Stadium roundabouts, slowing down considerably so as you get into the CBD. Watch out for that one. Watch out for other areas as well as the minutes tick by. Let us know what you see. Spice FMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Calls this hour, 0719-012-600. Nurses and clinical officers are on strike. Doctors may go on strike if they don't get anything coming out of the Senate and National Assembly. What are people saying on social media?
Well, I mean, quite a lot this morning. We need to change the narrative, only recognizing doctors and nurses. We have other healthcare workers working tirelessly with their efforts less recognized. The public health workers who are following up on cases at home-based isolation care. And this is from Adonija Otieno. He also says, if we're really honest, we would have invested heavily on preventative medicine by supplying the right PPEs and other supplies. COVID-19 is all about prevention. Joshua Songa says, solidarity forever. The union makes us strong. DP Halai says the Ministry of Health bureaucrats have already siphoned off the funds meant for additional benefits for health workers. Just a few days and all will be revealed. Okay. Yegon says we're also on strike too. Looking at other comments coming in. GK Kilel says poor leadership. Government must listen to them unconditionally. Okay.
Let's begin the hour with the proverb from C.T. Muga.
Right. Those who are absent are always wrong.
Those who are absent
are always wrong.
Yes. Okay, 0719-012-600. Yegon.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
Good morning. How are you?
I am fine.
Are you at work?
No, I'm on strike.
Oh.
Surely.
And now I'm representing my cadre of Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists. Because if you see those results being announced by Kagwe or daily, we are the ones who are dealing with them one-on-one.
Yep.
And as we are doing this, we are only we don't have BPs. When I say we don't have BPs, is that there is no way you can be given one mask per day that you are being issued by the MOH or a clinical officer who is in charge of most facilities.
So you're given a mask per day?
One mask per day.
And
now, this mask, you will use it to see all the patients, remove it when you are going for a tea break, come back, pick it, use it till lunchtime, go for your lunch break, come. With
So
one
when
mask.
we heard from Dr. Mulwa, CEC Health, and he said to us that it would be difficult for him to find whereby these PPEs, and we must also understand that PPEs encompass everything from boots to face mask to face shield to the full the gloves and the full space suit, right? For want of a better word. He says as far as he's concerned, it's difficult to find where these are not provided. You are saying something to the contrary.
In fact, I wanted to call during Dr. Mula because these guys are the ones who are like the media. If you go only to the county referral hospital, this is where now you will see these PPEs being used. If you move to sub-county hospital, there is trouble. Go to an LD center, up to the dispensary.
Yeah.
And remember, these are people who are on the ground with the immediate impact of people.
Of the community, yes.
We are the one who, at the community level, who are referring them to where? To county referral hospitals. Now, the first exposure comes from the person who is at the ground, dispensary, health center, sub-county hospital.
Yeah.
They are saying that they are giving us comprehensive NHIF cover. What they mean by comprehensive is that before they issued us with comprehensive, we were not receiving services of dental and optometry. Now, when we complain about that, they now had to give us a comprehensive cover of Kenya shillings 40,000 per year, which means if you are covering your entire family, only 4 visits, you are done with that money and there is no more cover.
So the 40,000 is for everything, or is it just for dental and the optometry?
It is for dental and optometry.
40,000 for you and your family.
Yes, that is what they call now comprehensive cover. Number 3 with NHIF, they are deducting them on our pay slips on time. But you find most counties they are not remitting the deduction earlier. You can find now by now we have some counties who their August NHIF have not been updated.
Yeah.
If you go to an hospital, you have to pay. They don't mind about the years you have been contributing. So what we are striking for is for BPs and the COVID allowances. Because in every soldier who is in the forefront, we need allowance as a booster. It motivates us.
Yeah, true.
Because right now, remember that the planners of going to off leaves have been irregular right now because you cannot go for leave during the pandemic.
So, Yegon, lab technicians and technologists, what union do you belong to?
We belong to a union known as Kenumlo. It's just 2 years old.
Has it issued a strike notice?
Yes, we have issued a strike notice.
And yours was also culminating with today?
We are beginning it today. And in fact, as Kenumlo, we are asking for more lab techs to be employed.
Okay.
You see, Eric, in every sub-county hospital, if you can do your own survey, you will find just in a sub-county hospital, there is only 3 lab techs. If you go to an LD center, it's only 1 lab tech. Now, in an LD center, you have 1 lab tech, 1 clinical officer, and 10 nurses. What happens when this person goes for leave or maternity leave? The people will suffer.
Yeah.
But the county governments have been doing that. They employ 8 nurses, 2 lab techs.
And with all of this, Yegon, it's very interesting because I hear that it's not about the money that you're putting into the hands of these workers. First of all, it is give us the equipment that we need to be able to do our job. We want to do our job. Secondly, should we get sick, we want to make sure that we will have the insurance that will allow us to be treated then in hospital. And then thirdly, yes, give us the allowances that we need. So it's not really about priority being we want money. We want to be
It is
able to
not
do
about
our
money.
job, but we need the equipment to be able to do it.
In fact, we were asking about the isolation, at least a better isolation center for specifically for medical workers. Look, Nyeri and work. In Wajir, we lost healthcare workers because of lack of oxygen.
Yeah.
The reason is because this oxygen we are using, all of us, the patients and the medical workers. So in time of crisis, these are people we are losing on the forefront. The person who got the disease being on forefront, and also there is nowhere to be treated. In fact, what we are now being used is just the home care. That's the only way we can avoid it. And if by mistake that you are in area whereby there are no kids to be, so that you can be tested to confirm if you have COVID, you may end up dying earlier because you may be ignoring that you have a cold flu or you are suffering from pneumonia.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because when there is time, when you get your results, at least you can even try your own home-based care to boost your immunity.
Sure.
I want also
So
to
we ask
bring in...
for people, we don't want to see this CECs lying to you that there is equal BPs. Yes, if you go to any county hospital referral, you will think that everything is okay. But please proceed even to the to further down level.
The health centers do not have.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Egon. I want to bring in James in Nairobi, who is also on the line. Good morning, James.
Morning, Eric, and the rest of the team.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, I think I need to pay tribute to all the health workers of this great republic of ours and also of the world. We are working and operating in very difficult circumstances. But having said that, and I think we'll need to be a little bit more honest in our conversations on these matters. This story of could have, should have, could have been, should have done, I think is doing a great disservice to this nation. With all due respect to all the health workers, not all of them are getting infected in the course of the line of duty. That is something we must say. There are those who are obviously getting sick when they're going for parties where there's no social distancing, and it is out there. But having said that, I think also the whole story of the plight of the health workers has been weaponized to reaching to a stage where now we are dealing with things that have been on the table for years and donkey years and trying to sort it out in the middle of a pandemic. A health services commission is not going to help any health worker from getting COVID, not getting COVID, or getting treated for COVID. We must be honest about that. What we need to be talking about is what can we get the PPEs to them. PPEs are lying in KEMSA, but because of legal processes, they cannot be distributed because EACC has written a letter. Then we deal with that directly in a more pragmatic fashion. Calculate how many PPEs are there, write a letter, send it to court or to whoever investigation authority, take photos so that these PPEs can be distributed.
So do I hear you saying, James, that things are not as bad as they're being touted to be?
No, not at all. Things are bad. But I think what is being done is that we're trying to solve one issue, 10 issues at the same time, instead of breaking it down. What is the most important? What is the what is the next? What is the first thing? To me, provision of PPEs. Secondly, there's a health insurance scheme. Whether it is comprehensive, not comprehensive, not dental, there's a health insurance scheme. So I think it's also dishonest for people to say that there's no health insurance scheme.
James, what you say is actually very honest. And I like the direction you've taken with the discussion. So I want to continue along those same lines. Now, consider, for instance, all the issues that are being lumped together right now. Don't you think that if they had been attended to and resolved earlier, this lumping together that we are now seeing wouldn't have occurred?
And as you answer that,
That is
plus,
very true.
this is not the first time the outcry has been. It's been like this
That
for
is all
years, before COVID.
Yes, and that is very true.
And
That is
secondly,
very
the
true.
issue
And
of
thank-
the frontline workers being the healthcare workers, and the reality of what they face simply because of COVID, it most definitely raises the levels of this discussion to a completely new level.
That is all very true, and I agree. I agree with each and every one of you. But what I'm trying to say is that this is not the time to start dealing with all of them in a lump.
So when is
We
the
will
time,
lose
in
the
your
script.
opinion?
Let us deal with the most important things. The Health Services Commission is a constitutional matter. It has to go through surveys, it has to go through this, it has to go through this. You will not be able to do it right now.
But they must start
Right?
it at some point, and they haven't.
Yes, we can start the conversation. It was supposed to be in BBI, it is not in BBI, then let us get it out of the way for now. Let us deal, how do we get these PPEs that are lying in camps or wherever to the health worker, number one. Number two, let us give them the appropriate comfort and the appropriate insurance. I'm a civil servant myself. I am covered by NHIF. Is it the best cover in the world? No. Is it better than no cover in the world? Yes. Is there a way that it can be enhanced for a specific group of people? Yes. And let's do that. The issue of COVID allowances, remember they're saying is that they want the one that was given for the short 3 months, they want it extended. I believe that. I believe in that. Can it be done? Yes. How much? Yes. So that when we start dealing with this thing, we start thinking from a pragmatic point of view. But this one would have, you should have done this, I want this, I need this all, I need the entire rubric of the package together before I go to work. Doesn't work. Because what is happening now is strike notices by health workers has become so common.
Yes.
Strike notices by health workers has become so common that it means it's another one. What are we to
They're actually being reduced into kelele.
Yeah, but does it reduce the importance of what they're saying?
It doesn't. Well, I'm hearing what he's saying. He's saying
it doesn't for 1 minute.
Now for this time, can we focus and make sure that we get one thing and these three things? Because once you get those three things, then you can come back and have another conversation. If you lump everything,
yes, because you cannot have conversations with the dead health workers or dead decision makers, because you wanted to sort out a constitutional issue or health service commission at the same time with the provision of a PPE. Let us de-weaponize the conversation. Once we de-weaponize the conversation, then we take the pragmatic approach. We take the pragmatic approach of dealing with the issue first on the table. When your house is burning, you do not go and start putting off the fire in the place where there is no fire. You start in where it is burning the most. And this house of the health workers and their plight, the place that is burning the most is supply of PPEs.
And health.
Secondly,
and
to me, it is the issue of the insurance. The insurance is to help you if you get sick. So let us prevent you from getting sick in the first place. And thirdly, remember, health workers, yes, you do an excellent job, they're good people, but the same should also be looked at every other Kenyan. If we create this very special group, what do? You just start building resentment, because what will stop the architects from saying, even us, you're essential services, because without us you cannot build a hospital. We want something different. What will stop us from saying, ask the lawyers, even we want something different? So let's break down the conversation, de-weaponize it, and take pragmatic steps going forward. Having said all that, again, I want to renew my solidarity with them, but free legal advice, de-weaponize, de-escalate, re-strategize.
James,
that is what will get you through.
James, since you say you are a civil servant, tell me why it is you're not on the negotiating team with the government, because because this sort of logic seems to be completely absent from the discussion. Because if it was, I think the very things you're suggesting would have seen the light of day, wouldn't they?
Yes, but remember also, you also
Muga, CT Muga.
Muga.
Do is the lady, but yes.
What you also get at the end of the day is everyone's rendition of the meeting that they had.
Yeah.
Obviously, I believe and I want to believe, yes, you have right thinking. Kenyans who are brighter, maybe more eloquent and more savvy than I do. But what you get is everyone's rendition at the end of the day of a meeting. If you and I, Bwana City, go to a meeting, since you're antagonists on different sides of the table, You will come out with your version that pushes your agenda, and I'll come out with my version that pushes the agenda. Maybe
that
we
is
need to start
absolutely
seeing
true.
these meetings.
In
Maybe
the end, Eric suffers when he goes to hospital.
Yes, maybe you need to start having these meetings hadarani.
Yeah.
See, what did you say? You have what you're telling us at the end of the day at 1 p.m., at 7 p.m., at 9 p.m. is not what you said during the day.
That's true.
And,
James,
and union leaders sometimes say things behind closed doors and then come out breathing brimstones and fire because they need to continue playing to the gallery of their union. And that happens all the time.
Part of the game.
Yes.
Thank you very much, James. Let's go. As we go to the break, let's hear from Ed Gitonga, and then we also pick more of your calls. 0719-012-600. Ed.
Hey, morning, guys. How are you?
Very well.
Fine, thank you.
Hey, too bad. Last time I had some network issue. Now, in the past,
yes,
if you didn't have a dog, you used to get some paint and paint it on your gate, mbwakali.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people will think that you have a dog, but you don't have a dog. Because I remember, Eric, before the doctors issued the 21 days strike notice, we were evaluating if how serious this thing is. Huh? And I remember, Eric, you said that you gave us a little trailer of how things go. You know, they just go and they say they're going to talk. They gave a break to the notice and everything cools down. You know, but here's the thing. This one is a life and death situation. I actually didn't expect that these guys are going to say, wacha kwanza tusitishe mgomo, because this is a life and death situation. To be quite honest, there's no way you can tell me, excuse me, Dr. So and so, tulikuwa tuna strike juu ya PPE na hatuna, lakini endelea siku zingine 14 tuone kama bado zitakuja zingine.
Tuongeleshwe na hawa.
Honestly, it's a life and death. It is a kidnap situation that we are negotiating. There is no way. They shouldn't have. That is what I'm saying. Because if you keep doing that, then KMPDU and the health sector is going to be like that. Teachers walikuwa wanashinda mgomo day in, day out. And it's the same thing. Well, the thing is, what you're trying to solve is something that shouldn't be negotiated in any way. I suspect some foul play over there. I think these guys, like the previous caller, what he was saying, you know, it's like, you know, these guys, or they say wacha tugome, and then wakiitwa kando, they say wacha tusitishe mgomo kwanza. Because honestly,
so what do you think? What do you think, Ed, is that the doctors' union should not have called off their strike?
I don't think they should have called off the strike.
It was not wise for them. Thank
you.
It was not
wise. It was not wise.
Thank you for your contribution. 0719-012-600. What do you think? The doctors are not going on strike for another 14 days, but nurses and clinical officers are going on strike. If you go to your local dispensary, that person that you find there is a nurse or a clinical officer. They have gone on strike. That's it. That's basically what it means. What do you think about that? 23 minutes after 9. Let's take a look at the weather and then we continue with more and pick your calls. As well, you can post your comments on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Next week on the Great Kenyan Bake Off.
Mama, I done made it.
It's bread week, and the last 5 bakers are out to prove that they have what it takes to get to the semi-final.
I love it.
It's a race to the finish as they knead, knock, and proof their way through a wild technical challenge. Catch a slice of the action as the bakers deliver on a cheesy signature, and we find out who will rise and who will bite the crust.
Ooh la la.
I'm pretty happy with that.
It's perfect.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The
The sun's peeking
weather
out
with
through those
Spice
clouds
FM.
in Nairobi. 23 degrees, 28 will be the high today and lows of 19. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 21 with highs of 27. The low will be 14. Sunny conditions in Nyeri, partly so. 19 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny in Eldoret at 16 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Sunny conditions in Kisumu at 24, going to highs of 27 and lows of 20. Where in Kakamega, it's mostly sunny at 24, going to highs of 28 and lows of 16. Mombasa is raining, highs of 30 and lows of 24 today, where it's mostly sunny in Malindi at 24, going to highs of 28 and lows of 17. We're looking at 23 and mostly sunny in Kampala, highs of 27 and lows of 18, where Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 26. We're looking at cloudy conditions in Johannesburg at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 15. Light rain in Lagos at 25 with highs of 31, and it's sunny in Kinshasa at 23 with highs of 31 and 0 in Beijing as going towards Monday evening, highs of 1 only and lows of -6. Getting chillier and chillier in Paris. It's now 1 degree and foggy, 5 the high and lows of 1. It's also 1 in London, highs of 3 and lows of 1 with clear skies in New York now on Monday morning, 5 degrees the high and lows of smack dab on 0.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done.
All right, 26 minutes after 9. The conversation continues. 0719 012 600. Very many comments on social media.
So, Johanna Michael says, we can accommodate the health sector, but BBI, the train, is about to reach its destination. And the cake is in the oven. Okay, so many things happening here. Transport kitchen. Anthony Kamau says, the underlying factor is corruption. As long as money meant for public use ends up in a few greedy pockets, with no goodwill to arrest the culprits, strikes will always be in the order of the day, and so all sectors will join the movement. Poor government that only focuses on constitutional changes but fails to consider the plight of the vulnerable medics, according to James. We also see Brian saying the health sector in Kenya is on its knees. It needs to be addressed ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
The health sector is on its knees.
Yeah.
It's on its belly. It's been on its knees for a long time. It's on its belly and barely moving.
Oh, yeah.
Fortunately.
Oh, yeah.
Because that, if you listen to everything that we're being told by those who work in the health sector, this is what it is. You know, that's true that Diego was saying. I was actually thinking, the face masks that they're given are these supposedly temporary ones, which you're supposed to use per day.
And dispose of.
Yeah, but if you think of the work that is actually done with them, one could argue you probably need 2 or 3 per day, not one.
Every time you walk out, walk back in, I mean, you have that one face mask. Take tea, done the same.
Yeah.
And this is a lab technician.
Yes.
And imagine what a lab technician does.
Deals with
samples.
Just the intensity
Yeah.
and the exposure that a lab technician has. It's not just COVID. Everything else that
that's being
requires,
tested.
yes, right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
So, I mean,
It's crazy.
Haven't you heard cases of people who go to hospital with one condition and contact
Come back with
another? Yes.
another.
Now we're now hearing of people who've contacted COVID and even died from COVID, yet they went into hospital with a totally different issue, which wasn't threatening their life.
Yeah.
So, now that is something that a lab technician faces daily.
That's what they do.
Daily.
Karanja in Naivasha, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you today, Karanja?
I'm very fine, sir. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now that the nurses and the clinical doctors, they want to go on strike,
Yep.
I think this is hypocrisy. Even the fact that, you know, Eric, I live in a village where I see somebody is using a clinical mask, face mask, a clinical face mask, and that person since the COVID-19 started back in March, he has been washing the same till today.
Wow.
I happen to see, I think the last time I was talking about the NHIS, okay?
Yes.
So, if somebody is demanding more, in the center of this the so-called, in the center, somebody is demanding more, in the center of the coronavirus, the corona pandemic, I think this is hypocrisy. Given the fact that I told you last time that I pay 1,600 in every month going to the NHIF. Now, when I go to the hospital, I am denied some services because somebody is saying I have not been paid this last month, so you have to pay because the NHIF does not cover because you have not been paid for the just 1 month.
Yep.
So what are you saying, Karanja? Are you saying that they don't deserve to get more than one face mask?
Exactly. Because I see somebody, since the pandemic started this March, somebody has been using one mask since that much to date, my friend.
Karanja, I have to ask, maybe the masks all look alike. How sure are you that it's the same mask this person wears every day?
I have some workers who we stay with them, but I see how they struggle. I happen to see some women in the village here where I'm living in a village in Kenamba here, in Karati, where I see some people. They are just watching a mask day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out.
So,
my friend.
These masks that are supposed to be per use per day and which are supposed to be disposable are the ones you're saying they wash and reuse?
Yes, they wash and reuse, my friend. So, let me say this, Eric.
Yep.
Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say this. The Kenyans need to wake up because the constitution of the nation, the first article of the constitution, the supremacy battle, the supremacy of the new constitution belongs to the people. I think this is a time that Kenyans should wake up. Let them not sleep. Let them wake up and start using the constitution that they voted for. Now we cannot go for the BBI, and the first constitution, they are not using it right. So I think, including even the people from Vaivasha, this is a Vaivasha constituency. We have more than 290 constituencies. Let people wake up and start using that constitution because the monarchy cannot suffer just because somebody wants a big city
somewhere.
And these people elected them to do what? Yeah?
Truly doesn't work for us. Karanja, thank you. Thank you. Let's hear from Jimmy in Malindi. Jimmy, good morning.
Hello?
Hello.
Good morning, Jimmy.
Fine, thank you. For me, going straight to the point is that we know that every doctor, when you are acquiring your certificate to work, you have not, as much as it's about work and money, but the first thing they sign is a Hippocratic oath. You know Hippocratic oath? Hippocratic oath is an oath signed by doctors saying that the health of the individual will be first. Then the money will come next. So I do support this Mgomo. If only that, and the complaint of the doctors, if only that they are complaining about the PPEs and about how they are, the government is not giving them the right equipment for this work, and especially for COVID. But I don't support when they have to lay down their tools because of money. They want more money. They want they want to be in a special class. Yes, I know they are special because they are the ones who take care of people's health. And it's true, the government should give security to the people who are downing their, who are giving out their services at a very dangerous point. You see, because with this coronavirus and in the health sector, it means that you are one-on-one with coronavirus next to you. So these people at least should be given security. But when it comes to added money or anything to do with financial increase, that one I really don't support it because the health of the people should come first. With the Hippocratic oath they signed, they were not forced by anyone to sign. They went for this work. They went for this job themselves. And that is my point.
We hear you, Jimmy. Thank you.
We support, but we don't support money issue.
Not money.
And Jimmy, you really have gotten to the heart of the matter, but it's actually a Hippocratic oath. Yes, not hypocritic, just cratic.
Cratic.
Yes.
Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, hi guys.
How are you?
Zachary, we've been asking about you. How have you been?
We are okay.
He asked about you on Friday.
And let me say things. The economy now is starting to grow, and it is actually flowing back to me.
Uko na pesa?
No.
Zachary's economy.
I don't want you to make a ride and you expect handouts from me.
No, Zachary, you know the previous handout never got to us. So we are like these health workers. The previous promise wasn't made, so we are not really sure about even believing in new promises. But anyway, carry on, please.
Okay. How is everyone?
We are well, thank you.
Okay, now I'm happy to hear all of you. And congratulations, you have got a lady there, the receptionist. She's got a very, very harboring and, cool voice, yeah?
She's our producer. She's called Sarah.
Oh, congratulations to her.
Congratulations, Sarah.
That's the kind of voice that I would want to hear every morning. Now,
so John has been demoted.
No, I think Eric has also been demoted.
Eric.
Hiya, tuendelee.
I'm not also simple. Now, let me say this, yeah? Very quickly. I remember my mother advising my sisters, yeah? That when you get married, the first person that you take care of most in terms of making sure that he gets a good diet is your husband, just as she did to my father, yeah? You know why she advised them so? It is because the husband must have energy, must have the vigor to bring food to us that he is feeding, yeah? Like you, hello?
Hello.
We are listening.
Like you guys, I know you have families, isn't it? Mwalimu cannot come there hungry, and he is looking for uga, for everything to take to his family, yeah? So now, let us now equate the doctors to our fathers. The doctors have done very bad to have called off the strike. Whether I'm going to get COVID today, I don't care, but I was supporting them. Because they should be, first of all, they are the ones who are taking care of us when we get sick. They should be actually 100% protected. And also let me say this, yeah? They have postponed the strike to the 20th. Is it 20th of October?
21st of
December. We shall ask them if only today's 10th, yeah?
Today is 7th.
If you had the
weather,
if you had the weather window, I will ask them, if you had the weather window to wait for more 10 days, the guy who has called them and seen them aside, because I believe that is what has happened, the officials have been seen aside there, we will be told, now get this much also and convince your colleagues that they can also wait up to 21st January. And by then we hope that our big brothers, the US, the UK, shall have considered Kenya as a state that needs to be given the vaccines. They are free, yeah? And therefore the cycle will continue. So those guys, let them know from my heart that they have done very bad.
They've let you down.
Eric, if you go home today and you return your family or your relatives, I'm going to commit suicide, and then you don't do it, even when you say it next week, no one will take you seriously. Actually. Yeah.
You're right.
Thank you, Zachary. Thank you. Daniel in Kisumu. Have a nice day, Zachary. Daniel.
Yes. Good morning, Eric Ndu and City Muga.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, it's a very bright morning in Kisumu.
Lovely.
And how about Nairobi?
Yeah, the sun is out. It's a good thing.
Okay, let me go direct to the point. You know, the doctors calling off the strike is quite impractical because of one thing. The nurses and the clinicians are the ones who are at the foundation of healthcare provisions. And the doctors, in terms of consultancy and the rest, definitely the health system is going to stay for the way I see it. And it was quite an injustice for the doctors.
Oh, we've lost Daniel. Let's see if we can get him back. So basically, he is also saying that it's impractical even for the doctors to say that they've called off their strike. But if nurses and clinicians are not at work.
How will you work?
Eric, even as we've been saying this the whole morning, I've been thinking, what bit of what is actually discussed do we get to consume in the public? Because the point at which decisions are made of this nature, when a decision which is a complete opposite of this had been made, I'm sure there's a lot more that was discussed and said that tilted the scale in favor of, okay, let's break the strike. But then there is what you now issue out for public consumption. Yes. And I think it's the same thing with the nurses and clinical officers. There are discussions that are had, and they say, look, folks, until you tell us this and we see it in writing, we've heard you before, we're not doing this.
You're not doing this.
There are things we will not read about, we will not hear about, they may not even speak about it. But it doesn't mean that when they're behind closed doors and they're having discussions, that some of these things are not
Don't
discussed.
come out, yeah.
No.
So it'll be interesting
again,
to see what will come out. Like, we know currently that the Nurses Association is currently having a meeting with the Ministry of Health, and that is going on right now. And they've been called into that to hear what the Ministry of Health would like to say to them directly. Just as you say that, and I wonder, will we be privy to the details of that?
No.
This conversation that has been made so public, this conversation of the wants and the demands and the needs of health workers, of nurses, of clinical officers, but then what is being put on the table? What demands are then being made face to face? Unfortunately, then the public doesn't get, access to that information when push comes to shove, unfortunately.
Well, it's okay. We don't need to have, access to all the information. But the thing is, they have come out publicly and said, we are going on strike with 1, 2, 3 demands. So come out and say our demands have been met, or our demands have not been met, or the promises have been made and we feel satisfied that the promises as have been made are going to be met. And that's enough for you to then say we are going back to work. And like you're saying, City, if there are conversations that then happen and the issue of what has been discussed is not coming out very clearly in the open and to the public, it all comes down to, yes, you've called off your strike and you're saying we're giving them the benefit of the doubt because of maybe the kind of conversation that you had with the individual members who reached out to you, the individual senators who said, guys, just give us this one opportunity. And maybe before, because you've never really negotiated through parliamentarians, you're saying, okay, maybe this is a new route. Let's show our goodwill to parliamentarians by saying we're going to call off the strike. Let's see this new approach, whether it's going to work. So the next time, if parliamentarians have never delivered, ministry has never delivered, SRC has never delivered, if you ever are called by parliamentarians, you'll be like,
thank you.
We know you guys.
But even more significantly, Eric, if you think about it, the moment you bring in our lawmakers into the discussion, I think it is a good thing, because they're the ones who essentially give you the platform from which all these things that we eventually do comes from. Now, the question that I would like to ask, and perhaps should be considered, did we prematurely devolve this particular function?
Yeah. Did we prematurely devolve health? Let's ask ourselves that question after this break.
Yes.
18 minutes to 10 o'clock. Did we prematurely devolve the health function?
Spice FM, Nakuru. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hii Krisi tukiwapea mtawezana. Star Times brings you the FKF Premier League. Hii ligi ni yetu, tuende nayo. You can also enjoy the Europa League, La Liga and FA Cup. To enjoy, simply get a satellite dish for only 2,699 shillings and aerial decoder for only 1,499 shillings and watch the FKF Premier League live and in HD exclusively on BTV channel 172 and 463. Recharge for 2 months and get upgraded for 2 months or call 0719 077 000.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to
Okay,
Spice
looking a little
FM.
bit better, but Waiaki Ways, where it's a clog up this morning, trying to get into the CBD, coming via Chiromo and then out there. It's moving very slowly, but you can get off up the bridge and then connect with Forest Road and then turn right back down. That's an option that's being given by folks this morning, so you can use that one. Getting off Mombasa Road is not too painful right now. It's looking much better than it was before. So yeah, I think traffic for most parts of this Monday morning has eased quite some. Likely to pick up then later on during the day. Talk to us through the day if you need to. Spice FM KE or text on 40127.
kidole, tengesa kidole, agano kidole, agano kidole, agano.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't...
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Health too early, prematurely.
Yes.
What would make it premature?
What would bring in the word premature into the discussion is this. If you look at the statements being made about health services being provided in the county, there seems to be a failure at several fronts. One, adequate budgeting for healthcare workers and their needs. That's two, in the healthcare system. But secondly, it appears that in some counties, because of funding assistance that was received through PEPFAR, funding by PEPFAR through CDC to help with HIV, help sustain the health systems in some counties for such a long time that it almost became the ordinary and expected and taken for granted part and parcel of the healthcare system. Because that funding involved not just the provision of ARVs, but also the provision of everything that went with the care and treatment for people with HIV positive, including employing specific workers who are health workers, but whose focus would be to work within the HIV sector. Now, again, funding gets withdrawn, gets reduced as per the schedule that had been there. You suddenly have a situation which is very similar to the blood donation center, where people now at a loss. Now, the blood donation center, the saga and the drama around it was actually special, where someone tells you they knew the funding was coming to an end, but they didn't budget to cater for that particular shortfall, which was definitely going to occur. Now, when you have these things happening all the time, you then ask, should the counties really have been given this function of managing this service?
Because it's beyond it just being a function, it's a heavy responsibility.
Yes.
It lies on shoulders. So then to be just thrown alongside the other things that you're doing for something that had already been riddled with controversy, number one. It had been riddled with all of these things. These strikes did not start 5 years ago. They've been there forever. There have been issues that people have been clamoring for change over for the longest time possible. So then with the devolution, it just gets thrown on their shoulders again with that responsibility. So, carry on with that. And I think that that's a big problem. Because we're talking about intricate layers of issues that need to be dealt with, from bottom to top, in the middle, across. There's so many things that need to be sorted out that it cannot be something that you can just lump with everything else. From scandal about those who stole and didn't steal, for the ones who are planning to steal, and then in all of that, throw in a pandemic in the middle of all of it. If you want to look at pandemic on its own, just by itself, what are the things that you've put in place to be able to allow a health ministry or the health sector work with that on its own, and then spread it out to county? The different things that need to be done to make sure that medical practitioners, health workers can actually do their job, or the things that need to be provided. It seems to me that it needed to come from a central place. It needed to come from a central place where policy and practice can then be applied properly. Because what's happening now, it's an absolute joke.
I think actually what's emerging is that we were devolving, not knowing where we're devolving from. We're devolving assuming that health is a function that is very well carried out and financed by the national government.
Already.
And yet that wasn't the case.
No, it wasn't. Still isn't.
Our healthcare is not financed by the national government. Our healthcare is not even managed by the national government. It is managed on behalf of the national government by others. So devolving should have had a conversation with who is financing and telling them, okay, now how are you going to be able to support it in 47 different ways or 48 different ways, as opposed to just assuming that it's going to be devolved and it's going to be financed.
You see, Just look at the basic issues that keep arising. Many of them exist in the counties, but we never get to read of them because they don't come to the public domain. But there's no shortage of it. Now, when you talk about universal health care, the immediate assumption is that it will resolve the problems that existed. It won't. It won't. It won't. Because if you had a shortage of healthcare workers, it isn't as though with universal healthcare you'll require less workers. No, you won't. The need for healthcare workers will be the same. If you had a shoddy system of procurement for the health needs of whichever county, if you have the universal healthcare, it doesn't mean it will be resolved. It won't be resolved. So when these things were dealt with at Afya House, there was the understanding that you then had an administrative level. At the time we had provinces at the province. We had issues, but the clarity and the manner in which these things functioned were things which in many ways one argues, I for one would argue, functioned better than the devolved system.
Even as we have the conversation, I think what bothers me more than anything else is that we speak of this thing as if it's some amorphous, very, very difficult thing to work out. And it really isn't.
Not really, it isn't.
No, it really is not. Because then we say, you don't want to deal with issues of procurement and then how it's going to be funded. And are we talking about intricate layers of this, that? It actually isn't really difficult to sort this out. And you have experts who are they're knowledgeable. They know what needs to be done. So then I ask myself the question, what is the problem? Why can't this thing just be sorted out? Why can't it just be sorted out? And then you want to introduce something like universal healthcare, whereby you're looking at any level of medical facility that anybody goes into in the country, they should be able to be sorted out, and that you should have people on board. That means any facility with any kind of equipment, for example, you should have people who can operate that equipment. You should have people then who will be able to refer you if need be. And then you have basic things that are not available. Basic things are not available. How do we expect a program like that to work out? And I think we heard Mochonda say the same thing this morning, that it is on this precipice that universal healthcare will fail. It will fail just because of what we are seeing now. So if you can't sort out the core issues, all these other grand and lofty plans that are there just won't work.
It actually begs the question. You actually get to ask yourself the question, the people who set the universal health care program into motion, yes. Do you think they didn't know this? Or was it just a red herring being thrown at us to show us that things are actually happening and that they are actually thinking of doing these things? Because if you look at the way it started, the pilots and what have you, the eventual results that came from the pilot, the understanding of piloting is so that you have results upon which you can now base the larger rollout of the program. Have you heard that? Have you heard any of it?
Oh, sorry, what exactly? The results of the pilots?
I like the way you've asked the question because that is the question that comes to mind.
Yeah, because you're wondering, wait a minute, did something like that come out?
We had the pilot, results were there, then...
Next.
Yes, next.
What we suffer in this country is we do not like facing the truth at all.
The stark naked reality.
Yeah, we don't like it. Look at everything. Even this BBI process, the way it started, it was, let us face our truth. The Agenda 4 commissions after 2008 post-election violence, it was about, let us face our truths. Let us face the truth on what happened, who caused the violence. Came up with the Waki Commission. What happened to the election? How did it go wrong? What happened to that? How can we correct that? Came up with the Kriegler Commission. TJRC, let's look at our historical injustices and the areas of people where people feel aggrieved by governments, by other communities. Face our truth. We never, ever, ever want to honestly face our truth. Handshake. Let us sit down and ask ourselves, what is it as a country that we are facing? How can we... Never, even now, about health. It's the same thing. We'll sit down, we'll come up with this very nice program and say this is a program and we call it UHC and we shall roll it out and we get to a point where we say this UHC shall be part of the 4 big agenda that the president shall spearhead as his legacy projects for the next 4 years. Even today, we do not want to face the truth. The president just comes and says, we knew from the very beginning that the big 4 was not going to be achieved. And
We're just telling you we're
just
putting it in
setting,
place.
you know,
Is that
a
not an
ground.
unfortunate statement to actually
We
hear?
do not like facing the truth at all. That's where we are. That's why we are seeing all these problems we have with health. Dr. Mochonda telling us if we roll out UHC this way, it's going to flop.
Damned.
We were told the same thing about CBC. If we roll out CBC this
The way it is,
it's
damned.
going to flop. If we all these things we've been told, if we continue borrowing, we are going to be in trouble. If we focus so much attention on just infrastructure and borrowing commercially, we will be in trouble. We never want to face and confront the truth.
Eric, you know, you have, as they say in the English language, you have enunciated a fundamental truth. Because the monies that we could borrow and borrow cheaply come with what we refer to as conditionalities.
Yep.
You'll be told, behave this way, turn left, turn right, walk with your nose in there. You'll be told exactly what to do.
You'll be told your truth.
And that one,
you will be told,
that
you know,
is you.
when you're coming to me and you want to do this project is not a good way to go. And
No.
you don't want to be told that.
No. And you also don't want to be told you don't need this and this and this. And this group of people, actually, why are they even here in the first place? You don't want to be told that. So you would rather go to a place where nobody is actually
Asking
going to
you
ask
any questions or
And when
asking
it
you
co-
to be
Yes.
responsible.
And when it comes to payment, all you'll do is your poor, unsuspecting citizens who are thinking the government is doing well getting money for projects, you're going to pay for it. Whether you see the project or not, whether it benefits you or not, you're going to
You
pay.
will pay.
Whether you're going to pay for it.
Yep.
It's like paying bride price for a bride you've never seen. And
Or
you'll
that
never
you
see.
will not see. You will not see. Or you will not marry.
So here we are now. We are about $1 trillion shillings short of that ceiling that was set by Parliament. 9 trillion shillings debt. We're about $1 trillion shillings short.
Yes, not 3.
And in the next 12
1.
months, we'll hit it.
If we have been known to be borrowing 2 billion shillings a day, surely that's chicken feed. We will arrive at that quickly.
Chop.
Yes, quickly. 2 billion shillings a day. We're not doing badly when it comes to just the amounts that we're able to borrow. 2 billion a day. People think about it at a thonk. Think about it in terms of budget. It's confusing my mind. Just 2 billion alone is confusing. Then per day. And my mind is having to sort this
And
thing
we
out.
have the National Treasury here telling us, you know what, I don't want to come and not tell you the truth.
I'm just telling you things are bad.
The truth is, I'm not going to tell you the truth.
But we can't continue this way.
Yes.
I think we have to continue borrowing.
Yes. But the truth is...
That's his solution.
The truth is we shouldn't be.
And
However,
then, the other truth we told you last week about us reducing
Our expenditures.
taxes. No, now, actually, let us tell you the truth. Okay, the truth
From
is,
January. We're not
reducing.
you are going to be
You're going to
pay until you breathe through your eyes.
From January, taxes are back. Okay? This is where we are. So taxes will come back from 14 to 16%. VAT is back. From
commercial tax, 25 to 30.
25 to 30% will come back as income. All those
In
things
the
are back.
spirit of being open and following the Constitution, especially that bit about which talks about truth and honesty. Yes,
We're
that
telling
one,
you
that
the truth.
particular
That's
chapter.
the one we can tell you the truth about.
Yes, so we're going to tell you the truth about that.
Yeah.
And even as we continue borrowing,
We'll expand our government.
yes,
We'll get some
We'll
more
have
money.
more offices. We'll have. You see the way we bought an office in town and call it the Prime Minister's office, which is now the Deputy President's office.
yes.
That will remain as the Deputy President. We have to look now for another.
We're going to buy another 4
Who has a building in town?
that we can buy.
Because we need one for Prime Minister and 3 deputies. Eh?
Yes, something not very different from the one that the Supreme Court acquired but didn't really actually
Yeah,
use,
because-
but they actually had paid for. That's the sort of idea we have. So, in the spirit of telling you the truth, Kenyans, this is what
This is
have
what we're
for
going
you,
to do.
have for you. And just so that you understand that public participation will be involved, you'll be paying taxes to pay for these debts.
You play a very major role
You
in
play a
this.
big role in the rollout of this new plan.
Yes.
Okay, coming to the end of the show. Today's Proverb City.
Those who are absent are always wrong.
Who are those?
You see, in decision making, if it is a political setup, for instance, the best example is this BBI train. If you are not on it, then you are against it. Even if you simply didn't want to board a train, you prefer another means of transportation, you are considered to be on the wrong side of the track. If you do not support any government initiative or you don't speak well of it, which means you're not on board, you're not on the side of the positive speakers, then you're an naysayer.
You're in your position.
You are wrong. It's a mindset that we haven't moved from, right from the days before we got the new constitution to now. We actually haven't moved from the new constitution notwithstanding. We still believe sincerely that serikali kuu has to be supported and believed in. And that mentality is taken up by anyone who's in a position of leadership, be they be in government or be they be in political positions.
Sinks home very well. Asante sana for the proverb. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. for more conversations. You'll have uninterrupted music until 3 o'clock, and then Monique will be here to take you home on Spice Drive until 7, and then the adults in the room will be here from 7 to 10. See you tomorrow. It's now 10 o'clock.